Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Rock and roll with Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Good afternoon, everybody. You are currently looking live at Starbase, Texas. Right now, you can see Booster 7 is out and Ship 24 is right next to it, in between those chopsticks, as SpaceX gets ready to lift it and stack it on top of Booster 7. Thank you all for joining us here. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I am one of the contributors here at NASASpaceflight, and we have some awesome people that will be helping us out as SpaceX gets ready to lift Ship 24. So joining me is Adrian. How is it going for you over there, Adrian?
It's going absolutely fantastic. I'm just so excited. I basically, that was my opener here coming into this call, because I'm so excited to finally see the full stack again, because I feel like we are all excited for that. And yeah, it might happen. It looks like it will happen today. So very, very happy.
Exactly. I mean, anytime there's a full stack, it's always an exciting day. Also joining us is probably the only person one of only two people I know, I should say, that loves shuttle as much or more than I do, and that is Chris Berg. And how's it going, Chris?
Evening. Did somebody mention shuttle?
Already marking the bingo cards off early, I guess.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to this, by the way. This is going to be, hopefully, the last time we'll see these two out at the launch site before launch. You never know. There's still things to do. They'll probably de-stack it again at some point for the static fire test, but this is exciting times. We're finally getting closer and closer. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
Absolutely. That is the exciting part, is that we are getting closer. And of course, a shout out to Patrick, who will be behind the scenes today, helping to push the buttons and make sure the robots, which we can confirm are well fed, get these feeds out to you guys so we can watch this all happen. And as always, as a reminder, if you have any questions or anything you want to know, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and with a special program that we have here, that will show it to us, and we can pick those questions and show them on screen. So, starting things off here, we have Ship 24, of course, ready to be lifted. So we've seen some lifts before, but for those that may not have seen it, Adrian, what typically happens during these lifts?
Oh yeah, well, the short version is we see a ship on top of a booster, but the long version is we right now see that the chopsticks already are close to Ship 24. The next thing we are expecting to see are these small little stabilizer arms that are below the chopsticks. You can see them here. Are they? Okay, for a moment I thought like they were moving right now. Basically, the next thing that we would see is they going in. And once that is the case, this ship would be ready to go, and then they would go first up and then rotate the ship over the booster and then place it on the booster for a full stack of Starship and Super Heavy.
Yes, so those chopstick arms are always very interesting for a lot of people to see, and they're quite unique, and there's some interesting parts on it as well. And I already see one question about it, of there are some things, someone described it as kind of like the pinkies on the chopsticks there. So can you talk a little bit about what those purpose is? I guess we're talking about kind of the pins that are attached to Ship 24 to help lift it there towards the bottom.
Oh, you mean that's the stabilizer arms I was talking about. Basically, at the bottom you can see them. They will connect to it, so they will stabilize the whole structure while lifting, so it's not swinging around in these chopsticks. So that's the pinkies. I like that.
Yeah, I've never heard him called that before, but I definitely like the idea of that is the pinky now. It feels like it's a classy Starship lift with the chopsticks there with the pinky out. So this is a big question from Hunter, and I know this was talked a little bit about yesterday during the Booster 7 rollout, but since we've got some different people here, I'm curious as well. So, Crispy, I'll start with you on this one. Do we think that this is the final stacking before an orbital flight test?
No, I don't think it is. I think what they'll do is they'll stack, they'll go for WDR, which is wet dress rehearsal. And for those who are not too sure what that means, it's literally like a dress rehearsal for a launch day where they'll fully load it with propellants. Everything down to potentially before T0. Obviously, they won't fire the engines up. There'll be a static fire test. WDR will test all the control systems, the pad systems, the vehicle itself, and the controllers. It's a very full dress rehearsal, as you'd expect it to be with the name of it. I think they'll then destack Ship 24. They'll allow them to clear up the TPS attach points, and they'll then probably move it far away so they can conduct a 33 engine static fire test with a booster if they want to go that route. But I think they will destack it again after WDR. So the key question will be after they finish the testing once destacked again, if they clear up ships TPS points to the points in the flight configuration and they restack it again, then we can get excited.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're still excited as is anyway, but yeah, there's still the whole process of getting to that point, and I'm sure there is a chance that we may see some destacks and restacks, even just out at the pad if they see something once they get into those wet dress testing, and especially as we get towards a static fire test closer to the orbital flight test liftoff. Reminder again, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight if you have any of these questions, like the ones we're asking now, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can right here on stream. So while we're on the lines there of the wet dress rehearsal, Sean is asking here, if all that's left is wet dress rehearsal and possibly the 33 engine static fire, why does Elon not expect to be ready for launch until at least March? Is there anything else that needs to be done? And before we answer that question, I do just want to point out that the ship quick disconnect arm is being moved away right now. So, Adrian, can you just talk a little bit about the ship disconnect arm first, and then we'll get back to answering that question?
Yeah, we see that here in the. Is that fog? Okay.
Is this Vandenberg?
Yeah. It's I don't like the fact that fog is right now appearing, but yeah, you can see it there at the top, right next to the booster, and it's rotating away because you need to have space to get this giant ship there. So that's a good sign. I would call this also a good sign. What we will usually see is they will connect this right after stacking to so basically they will put it on the booster and then move in the ship QD again and connect it to the ship. So yeah, this is all good, all fine. We are progressing slowly but surely towards a full stack.
Yes, so that's the one on the actual, I believe, towards the booster side there on the orbital launch site there, correct?
It's the ship QD is on the left side of the booster, the ship QD arm.
Right. So, as is implied in the name as well, when it comes to the actual liftoff of that flight, that will quickly disconnect from the booster, which has, I believe, feed lines and other ground support equipment based into that.
Yeah, you don't want your whole fueling equipment and your lines and everything. You don't want to have these right next to, so you want to have quick movements on these QDs because they, of course, need to disconnect before launch. Not only because that would free the rocket to go to space, but also you want to, get them to safety so that you don't have to rebuild them every time. I mean, we see that with basically every other rocket, how things like ground support equipment is moving away if they can, so it doesn't get hurt. There's like I think there's this great video of shuttle lifting off where you can see some like panels closing so they are protected against the SR Beast flying by.
Oh yeah, there's some great videos on YouTube that show the actual engineering cameras where you can literally see the numbering on the side for the frame, the mission, the date, all the info on it, where they've got some great slow motions of the quick clamps that come down to protect all of the ground support equipment, the fueling lines, all of that kind of stuff. It's fantastic if you've never seen it. So going back to that first question before we talked about the QD is... why does Elon expect that we might not be ready for launch until March if all we have left is wet dress rehearsal and 33 engine static fire? And Chris, I'm going to throw this one over to you.
Well, we all know Elon's very conservative with his timelines. I'm joking. It's a quick switch from that 2 weeks, isn't it? It's an interesting calibration of his expectations. I really like the fact that he replied to that tweet because a lot of people were getting very carried away with a local reporter who always does the nets, which are never realistic, of January the 31st. It was never going to be January the 31st. It was something where Elon thankfully clarified he was looking end of February, March, probably. That is realistic, but it's still maybe too soon. I think, to answer the question of, well, they've only got these few tests to go, why is it so far away? Those tests they'll have to go right for a start. They'll have to do data reviews. They'll have to get a lot of clearance from the paperwork side. Remember, the FAA launch license is one of the big ticket items we already remember from the Starship tests. They were never instant. They were always something that was after a certain review period, after they complete all the testing before launch. So they need to get these tests out of the way and then take the data reviews and get everything sorted, because it's going to be a different kind of launch. It's a full stack launch. They're going to need exclusion zones, evacuation points, lots of things with local authorities. I think Elon's being careful there. I think even if he thinks everything goes well, he understands there's a lot of paperwork to complete before they get into launch day. And I'd also caveat this by saying on launch day itself, a lot of people are going to turn up, and rightly so, but do expect several scrubs, because this is going to be 33 engines firing up at once, and they've all got to come back green before they commit to launch. It's going to be a big ask. I think I'd expect a few T0 aborts, to say the least, which also is a bonus, because if we're talking about the 33 engine static fire test, that's one test, but I think they'll get a few for free from T0 aborts. I think they'll fire up the engines at T0. 2 or 3 engines will say, no, I'm not happy. They'll abort and they'll recycle. And that, in effect, is like a static fire test in its own right. So I think the timeline, if that becomes reality, I think it's great, because it's only, a month and a half away, maybe? That's not going to be long away. But also at the same time, be careful, because they've got to get through this test successfully.
Yeah, this I think is one of the few times where a scrub on a launch attempt wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. And I mean, we've seen this a few times as well, even when they were just doing the ship tests going back to 8, 9, 10, all of those, where there are times they would get ready to go, almost hit T0, and then scrub it, and then recycle, and an hour or two later figure out what it was and try again, even sometimes the same day. So it might not be that quick if it's a 33 engine one, but something that has been done and that can be done, and like you said, is always a good learning experience as well. Now, a reminder for those of you that are just joining us now, you are taking a look as SpaceX prepares to lift Ship 24 using those chopstick arms that you see currently around it on the right side of your screen, and lift it up and place it on top of Booster 7, which you can see is the big silvery thing in the left side of your screen there as well. Now, one other thing that you're kind of seeing on the right side of the screen there is that like white smoke and plume and things like that. And I know we've been getting a bunch of questions as to what that is, and I believe that is related to the tank farms, if I'm correct, Adrian?
Sorry, do you mean venting, right?
Yeah, the venting on the right, the white smoke that people are seeing.
Yeah, it is definitely the tank farm, and we've seen a tank farm activity in an earlier stacking attempt. So I feel like either with the booster pressurization or something related to that, there's just activity there that they need to work for stacking. And I mean, it makes sense, because you want your booster to be fully pressurized, or at least partially pressurized for this, because you don't want to put a giant ship on an empty booster. So they would probably pressurize it with like ambient gas, and I would imagine that this then needs some tank farm activity. So yes, this is the orbital tank farm doing some minor work here.
Right, and so when we say that it is not actually smoke, it is related to the gases that are produced over at, we call them the tank farm. That's where they have all of the super cooled gases and things that also go into it, into the booster.
Yeah, it's like a lot of getting temperatures right. There's also just some idle venting, I would call it, because there's a lot of things like conditioning all over and over again the liquids there, making sure they stay how you want to store them, and that always produces a bit of venting. you could see that very clearly on the suborbital tank farm, because the suborbital tank farm will always have like some sort of little venting when there's something stored there and they're actually in a testing in a testing days. So yeah, some venting is expected if you store this amount of liquids and gas here, and yeah, it's normal.
Yes, and thank you to Patrick for switching that view right there. You can get a good look of where that's coming from on the left side of your screen. Another point that's been made, because this one has all of those heat shield tiles that you see on the bottom, which, again, hopefully we'll get to see used in the orbital flight. But it has been pointed out that it has previously been stacked with a crane. And Kevin's asking here, after being fully stacked, do we know if they plan to put thermal protection system tiles in the holes for stabilizer arms and where other connection points were? And if so, how? Is that something that I'm guessing they would have to destack to do, or can they launch it as is with that, do you think? What do you think, Chris?
It's a destack. That's actually part of the question answer I gave earlier, where they asked if this was the final time to be full stacked. I honestly believe they'll be destacking after the WDR, and that's when they'll get the opportunity to cover up those points. And the way they'll do it is, as we've seen before, when they attach the squid from the crane, we call it the squid because it looks like a squid when they're actually moving it on the crane. They'll take the opportunity to use lifts there and just do it in situ at the launch site. I don't think they have to roll back to the production site to complete that work. I don't think, again, I'm being very careful because we've never seen it before. This is the first time operation. So once they get past WDR, we're into new territory, which is exciting. But I think that's what they'll be able to do. They'll use cranes at the launch site and then cover it up there. We've actually seen them do TPS work at the launch site to help validate that.
There you go. So a lot of times when it comes to these lifts and things, we'll typically wait for a roadblock. But one thing that's interesting with this is with these lifts, a roadblock is not necessarily required for this, correct? Because I know Swin Y was asking if you need a road closure for a stack. I believe that is mainly just for tests typically involving pressurizing the vehicle and, of course, firing the engines. Or filling it with fuels, I should say.
We have seen that they closed before for stacking, but we have also seen the other that they just kind of closed to the left and the right side of the launch side, and just made sure that nobody is right next to the vehicle, and we're fine with that. So it's not as clear as that you, for example, need a closure 100% for anything that involves any liquids, because, for example, a wet rest rehearsal, yes, that would warrant a closure. Because you would load methane, you would load logs. That's where a situation where you want this road closed, because nobody should be near that. So yeah, this we will see how this develops, but it doesn't look like they will do like a full closure of everything.
And as Alex is pointing out in the back channel, as an interesting note, they did close the road for the booster, but the ship, they have not closed the road yet, and there is a good chance that they may not close it at all ahead of this lift. But that's why we've got our eyes on Ship 24 in hopes of seeing it stacked on top of Booster 7 very shortly. While we have a moment here, I do want to point out that we have some super chats, so a bunch of gifted memberships. So Jim Cavett, thank you very much for gifting 1 Red Team membership. Tracy coming through again as well with the gifted Red Team membership. Thank you as well, Alan Curtis, for the gifted membership. Danny as well, another gifted 1 Red Team membership. And Tracy with another gifted Red Team membership. Boy, that's a tongue twister right there. But if you did receive one of those gifted memberships, please make sure that you say thank you to them. And again, you get some awesome member perks if you become one of those members, so definitely consider joining the program. And again, joining the program does help us out very much and helps us bring you things like these live streams, like our 24/7 feeds, and helps us feed the robots.
By the way, can I just quickly thank those gift membership people, because they are regulars, Tracy, Allen, and the likes. That we see them in SBL on just normal, random, nothing happening days in chat where they'll just do a gift membership. And I think it's important to point out that these people are supporting the stream and our channel at all times, especially not when it's just like a big event going on. So I just want to thank them personally over the microphone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's nice to see the same names come up over and over again, and we appreciate all of your supports for this. So definitely thank you. Let's see. Again, you could tag us at NASASpaceflight if you have any more questions, such as this one from Regart, who's asking, why do a full stack now if Ship 24 isn't fully ready for launch yet, such as the missing tiles that we were just talking about? Adrian, any idea why they might want to do that?
Yeah, it seems like they really want to get to this wet rest rehearsal stage. I feel like they want to get this done. They want to make sure that they're ready for it, and I feel like that's what their priority is on right now. To get to this point and validate every system, because for example these tiles that are missing right now, they are not really something that needs to be tested in a wet rest rehearsal or would have any influence there. So it's not critical to do that right now. So it seems like just getting it ready. Also, you still want to have the ability, maybe for example, to lift this ship without the chopsticks. So they still have the attachment points at the top, for example, because you could run into a situation where, I don't know, you find an issue with a Raptor and you want to static fire the ship again. So you need to lift it then on a suborbital pad. So you want these lift points though. So yeah, lots of reasons why you don't want to get to the point yet where you fully enclose everything, get ready, and then launch. So yeah, that's I think the answer to that.
And I think that's a really good answer for that. Right. Let's see what else we have here. So Leah is asking, and I believe we have the count on this is correct, that this would be the third full stack, right? Like you, Leah, we're all keeping track and losing count a little bit, but if I'm correct, this is the third time that we will see a full stack of these two.
That is correct. They are going for a third one, and maybe a fourth, and hopefully then we will see. I'm excited for the moment when we know the next time they separate would be at Miko. That's really.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like we are all at the point where we're like, okay, that's. I feel like everybody of us here at NSF and a lot of other people, we try to still limit our complete hype for this because there's still a road ahead. But once they get through WDR, once they get through static fire, that's really the moment we're like, oh yeah, this is happening soon.
But at the same time,
I'll say something straight away. If we get to Miko with this test flight, that's going to be a massive achievement. I think again we're setting expectations accordingly here. If this thing clears the launch tower and doesn't go rud, and it gets uphill and it gets over the safety zone and it gets to the point where it's actually going to be shutting down for Miko, what a test flight that'll be, because that's a massive success. And also, this is the important thing, if they fly with Boost 7 and Ship 24, that's a test flight with a vehicle that's over a year old in design now. They've made many modifications since. So if they don't even fly this one, Booster 9's got modifications that probably give it a better chance of success as well. So you can do a two-pronged approach here, where if Booster 7 and Ship 24 fail, either during testing or flight, they've got the bonus of Booster 9 and Ship 25 flying with modifications. So it's all a progression path where we can't get too down with any bumps in the road, shall we say. But yeah, if Booster 7 and Ship 24 get to Miko, wow, that'd be a huge success and a real good path towards what is ultimately going to be a path to the Artemis program, because let's remember, Starship and SLS now working together.
Yeah,
that is
oh, good.
No, I was going to say, that is very true, and that keep in mind that NASA has selected Starship for the Artemis 3 and the Artemis 4 lunar landers. So as important as this is for SpaceX, it's also super important for our return of humans to the surface of the moon in the coming years.
I mean, it's a complete integral for the program. It's we right now the focus on this Artemis program is understandably a lot on SLS, and you talk about you see a lot of talk about SLS on the NASA side, which is very understandable because it's their side. It's what also needs to work, but this needs also to work. We need this to.
Everybody's shouting lift in chat, by the way. Sorry, Adrian, sorry to interrupt, but usually it's me that gets interrupted, but it's actually something where people in chat are all shouting lift, lift, lift. I don't know if that's a chance or actually seen something. Can we just check the streams?
Yeah,
A being here.
I was gonna say, let's see if we can do the AB.
I mean, the stabilizers are not in.
Chat, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, chat. Why?
They're trying to lift your spirits. That's all.
Okay.
But that was coordinated. That felt like there was a lot of people at the same time. That was interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think it was more coordinated. Also, it was the person that happened to purchase one of the metal prints, I believe, of Starship that popped up in the corner there as well. Which, don't forget, you can get those at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Unfortunately, it is not covering anyone's face today, though. I guess fortunately, technically. Sorry, Alex. And the other thing I was thinking before in terms of the road ahead, hopefully there is no more road ahead, because if it's back on the road, that means it's rolling back. But
yeah, I think I predicted this yesterday. I would feel pretty confident that these vehicles, if they launch to orbit or would attempt the first orbital launch, that they will not leave the launch site again. There might be destacking, but I think they might not go back to the production site ever again. That's my prediction here.
I would definitely hope so. And yes, you have worked, everyone. You have confused the entire NASA spaceflight team here with your attempt at a moon-style chant. So it's supposed to be lift, lift, lift,
Lift, lift,
lift. There we go.
And now we confused a dozen of people who are like having this in the background, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Totally not a ploy to get more eyes on the screen, right? Oh, well, I feel like now's the time then to catch our breath a second and go through some super chats here, because we have some good questions and some people to thank as well. So thank you to D.A. Swanson as well for gifting Red Team memberships. And then we have Mayflower coming in here with the Launch Director membership. Thank you, wow. very much for joining that part of the membership. That is one of our highest levels, and on top of the fact that anyone Capcom and above also gets Discord access, you'll also see your name at the end of our NASA Spaceflight Lives. So thank you very much for becoming a Launch Director. We really appreciate that. Vorex, thank you as well for becoming a PadRat member. And James Powers, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Again, if you received one of those, definitely give a thank you. Wolfram coming in here with the super chat, reminding people to also hit the like button, saying it isn't going to hit itself. That is true. It is completely free, and most importantly, it tells the robots that we don't pay or feed, aka the YouTube algorithm, that you like this and other people might like watching it too, and help us find more of those fellow space enthusiasts to join our Starship fun here. We have a question here from Maxence59 in a super chat, asking, is Booster 7 now obsolete compared to Booster 9? We were talking a little bit about how there are some differences, but what are some of the big differences then that might make Booster 7 obsolete per se, or is it obsolete for that matter?
I wouldn't call it obsolete. It's there's still a lot of verification that they want to do here, and there is differences in terms what B7 and B9 are different in. The main difference is that the B9 looks like it will be able to support the electrical steered Raptors. So that's based on the hardware we see outside. It doesn't have the hydraulic pressure units on the outside, so that is a difference. The question is, you are so far in this test campaign now with B7. You have went through a lot. It's a long test, multiple static fires, multiple pressure tests. You have the Raptors installed. At some point, you need to fly one. You will always run into the situation where you will have new hardware available. You will always run into a situation where you could test newer things, but at some point, you need to just decide to fly and decide to just go with what you have right now. And there's this dangerous trap where you could always iterate and never test, and then you would never go to orbit, because you could always probably learn from the previous vehicles and change something.
So you're saying it's a trap?
Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap. Hey, that's a reference I got.
Yes, hallelujah. All right. Thank you again for the super chat on
A
that.
miracle.
Another question here from Sean, and I think Chris, this is perfect for you as a shuttle person who can kind of tie this in. Asking, is it possible that the plasma shield of reentry could protect Starship if a single or a few heat shield tiles get lost?
Well, the problem with that is, we're talking about the booster. Was the question about the booster?
It just says protect Starship, so I would believe that would be the
Starship,
tiles
that's
on Ship
vehicle, yeah.
24.
Okay, yeah. The 24 tiles, that's different. That's okay, because that's where we can start comparing with the shuttle TPS. You can lose some tiles and still survive. It depends where you lose the tiles, and that was the key with shuttle. So you can afford to lose some, and that's not a problem. It's not going to end up resulting in losing the vehicle. But providing you don't lose them over critical areas, the thing with Starship is there's less critical areas where it could seriously impact the result of the mission. If you started losing TPS tiles over the main landing gear doors and ET attach points and places like that on the shuttle, that's usually very bad. Leading with engines as well was very bad. With Starship, it's basically more of a flying tank, let's face it. So it's not really much of a critical issue. I think it's got a lot more lenience towards that, and also the TPS itself will be very experimental. They want to get data on it. I think they might want to lose a few just to get the data on it. So that's the way I see it. It's a test flight. There's no people on board. It's fine. So I think the main answer to the question is yes, you can lose TPS tiles and still survive it. No problem at all. Depends where you lose it. With Starship's test flight, I think they will lose some. And I think that will provide them great data if they get to the point of re-entry where they can see the results of what that loss of TPS impacts on the vehicle.
Exactly. I mean, talking about losing tiles in first test flights, STS-1
Yep.
had a bunch of tile loss as well. Mainly, I think a lot of them were also near the OMS pods, which wasn't as bad. And then you did have a few where there was very close to burn through from tile damage. So Atlantis, though, is still around, but... But yeah, so it is very possible, and like you said, it would probably be actually good. I never thought I'd say this. It would be good to see some tile loss. A few other thanks here. Faisals, thank you for the super chat with no message. Dougal, thank you for the 5 gifted Red Team memberships. Thank you, David, for becoming a Red Team member. Black Adder for becoming a Pad Rat member. Now I really want to watch Black Adder. And holy smokes, Robert Hobson, thank you very, very much for the 50 gifted Red Team memberships.
Ow.
Talk about unbelievable support. Thank you so much for that. If you got one of those memberships, please give Robert a huge thank you. And we're not just saying that as we're running through a list. We genuinely mean all of the thanks for all of your support on this. So, wow, thank you.
Great long-term support, by the way. Again, sorry to interrupt, so I just want to point that out because Robert has been a supporter of this channel from very early days, and that is massive. That's a huge playing it forward because that's 50 people who now get Red Team memberships where they get extreme bonus content. It's not just their name in green on chat. The membership levels have different variants of benefits and perks. By all means, if you gain one, please thank Robert, and if you did gain one, also check the membership area of the YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, there are some really fun videos that end up going in there, and it's some other great perks. It's really awesome. As we had our nice little pan down there of the ship, I do want to hit one more question here that is not necessarily Starship related, but kind of ties in. And the question is, will Artemis 2s and future SLS rocket SRBs and core stages have the black and white patterns, or was that just for Artemis 1? And again, that was a lot of it, I think, is because of tracking cameras that were used on that initial test flight to get some good data from it. So I don't think we'll see the squares, the black and white squares that we're used to the whole time, but there's always some markings that are used to help with ground trackers.
Yeah, there's photometric and it's all those markings. The funny story behind that was before SLS launched, there were some renders put out by I think it was Northrop Grumman, who put out the swooshes on the SRBs, and everyone goes, "Wow, are they really going to launch it with these Go Faster stripes?" And no, Northrop Grumman said, "We don't even know about this." It's like the engineers were saying, "We don't even know about this swoosh. What is it about?" And it was basically a PR tool they put out there to make SLS look quite sporty, and it was never going to be the case. But the markings were for the test flight. One more time, I think they want to get a daylight launch in where they'll see how they can provide them with some data. But long term, I think we might just see white boosters because that is just a thing for the test flights.
And probably some NASA worm on there as well.
I hope so.
Which, I know this is controversial and probably going to send chat into a tizzy, but I am Team Meatball, although I do enjoy the worm.
Whoa! Team
That's
Worm?
a wrong opinion.
That is wrong.
I mean,
Hang on.
There's always Team
hang on.
Wormball, but wow, I feel outnumbered over here.
We need a poll. That's what we need. Best of
Yes.
the logo. All right.
Gosh.
Let's all prove Sawyer wrong here.
Ouch.
I'm not even going to do meat or worm ball or whatever. I'm just going to do a 50-50 split. Here we go. Let's just see who wins this poll.
What have I done to chat? Oh no. I'm voting Meatball. I see the poll is up. Vote
100%
Meatball.
worm. There we go.
I think the folks from Off Nominal did like a worm, but it was in Comic Sans, which was it's incredibly cursed.
Oh, that just sounds cursed. Oh. Oh boy. All right, let's let's get back to some questions here before until I get roasted when the poll results come in. I have a feeling. And speaking of roasted, so question about the orbital launch mounts deluge system. How's that for a transition? Just some Canuck was asking, how does it compare to others, say what they used for Falcon 9 over at Kennedy? It's never really looked substantial in the tests. So how is the orbital launch mount and that whole Fire-X different from what we're used to seeing with the Rainbirds?
Yeah, the amount of water is a bit different. If you look at, for example, SLS fire suppression, or in that case, deluge. And in this case, I would just say fire suppression system. Because, yeah, I'm very curious how this will hold up. That's my biggest one of my biggest watch points for the 33 engine static fire. How this whole infrastructure will do with what is not that much of water and much of suppression actually compared to other pad infrastructure. So, and there's also like flame trench, and there's a lot of energy. You could say basically the most amount of energy that ever a rocket ejected that needs to get somewhere. And we'll see how the whole infrastructure deals with that. But I'm very curious. Like that's a big question, and I'm pretty sure that even SpaceX is interested to see the results.
Oh, I'm sure they are too, and it'll be very interesting to see, especially considering that you don't really have the flame diverter as well. So this is going to have to carry a lot of the weight, and especially once we get all 33 engines online for this too. We've got a question here from Sam R Squared. As we get closer to this orbital launch test, Chris, I'll send this over to you. Do we know what the most recent launch profile that they're targeting is for this first orbital flight test?
I think it's probably changed since. That's the careful point we're going to make here. But the actual plan, as far as the official plan, Elon's not updated, and Elon is the official source because that's where you go on his tweets. Is that the booster will be splashed down off the coast, and that ship 24 will be splashed down near Hawaii. So when we say orbital launch attempt, I think probably orbital velocity maybe, rather than like an orbit around the planet. So it's kind of like you got to be careful with the actual trajectory. But I think SpaceX are due to put out some documentation in the not too distant future. And we might also see some highlights from the HLS program on NASA side, because HLS NASA Human Landing System is the program that's deeply embedded with SpaceX on the Starship program, because obviously it's part of the Artemis program now. So I would be very careful to make any claims. I would basically wait until you start seeing something from either Elon or NASA HLS or SpaceX themselves.
Yeah, again, we've seen lots of potential plans, but that is true. It's finding out what the official one is going to be. And of course, getting to that point is also getting everything lifted and tested, which, if you are just joining us right now, we are currently waiting for the lift of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7. You can see on the left there, it is currently inside the chopsticks. So we wait for them to finish, get everything set there. And on the right, you can see it is already sat next to Booster 7 there. So we are hopefully getting close to seeing that lift as well. Let's see. Some other questions here. And again, a reminder, if you are just joining us, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can. Let's see. We have a question here from MK asking, after we get stacked, what would be next? Full tank fueling or static fire? Which, I mean, technically you'll have to have both, but do you think we'll have more wet dress rehearsals before we see another static fire? And I think right now this is along the lines of speculation, but Adrian, what do you think?
I think the common belief right now are like I don't think we have the order completely cleared up, but I think the belief is that it will be wet dress rehearsal that is next, or like tanking testing, wet dress rehearsal. If I recall correctly, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think the way they're going to proceed with this, again, I'm only giving my opinion on here, is that they'll do a full tanking, which is WDR, with a full stack. They'll then remove Ship 24, move it away down the launch site, work on its TPS points, and during that period, they'll prepare for potentially a serious static fire test, but ultimately the 33 engine test, which will be booster alone. We believe that's why they did all that, the stress testing with the OM recently, with the orbital launch mount. Trying to get my words out there, put my teeth back in. There we go. And I think that's what they'll do before they'll restack the vehicle and potentially do another WDR with it, because they want to see how the vehicle's performed after some stress testing, and the 33 engine test will be some stress testing. Remember, when static fire tests are conducted, they're held down, and that induces more stressing through the vehicle, more loads through the vehicle, because it's held down as it's firing its engines. So it's different from a launch where it's free. It's using the actual propulsion, the actual thrust to get off the mount itself. So it's an intriguing timeline. We'll see, where we just know right now the stacking is to be for our WDR.
And for those who don't know, and I know I've seen a couple of people ask that, the WDR stands for wet dress rehearsal, and that is not when they start covering the entire thing in water. It has to do with filling up all of the different fuel tanks and everything with the fuels and oxidizers and everything that you would need. So some wet dress rehearsals, though, just use don't put in all of the fuels, correct? So what would be the purposes of a wet dress rehearsal, as Sotiris is asking here, and what happens during one?
Oh, you would want to basically, knowing SpaceX, it's like an automatic sequence to launch this. So this is like how they usually operate in terms of like Falcon. So what you would want to test is like, is my operating sequence and my whole plan how I want to launch this getting me to the point where basically every vehicle system is telling me, all right, we are go. You want to make sure that in theory, if the engine ignition was also part of the program right now, in a wet dress rehearsal, the setting would be, okay, we could launch now. Yeah, you just want to make sure of that, because you need to clear all of these steps anyway. So why not test them first?
Exactly. And again, that is also when we fill it up with the fuel, that tests to make sure not just that all of the lines and everything are working and that all of your tanks are good to go for when you're ready to start sending that fuel and oxidizer down to your Raptor engines, but it also is a good test of the ground support equipment, because anyone who knows rockets knows that sometimes GSE is worse than the rockets themselves when it comes to causing scrubs and things malfunctioning. So it's also a good way to make sure that all of your lines can feed these fuels, especially some of which, and most of which, are super cooled, like your liquid oxygen, to crazy negative temperatures that they're not going to freeze over, they're not going to crack, they're not going to, I don't know, say leak if it were, I don't know, liquid hydrogen, which thankfully they don't use here in on Starship, but, not throwing out any names there, Artemis. So...
Yeah, it's wow. It's we talk a lot about also like safety here, which is an important part of this because you kind of also could use a wet dress rehearsal to see if all of your potential problem indicators work. If you see if like the computer is doing what it is doing, and that's also an important part of this. And also, I could imagine that situation like agencies like the FAA would like to see some sort of software demonstration that, for example, a flight termination system would work on the software side. Of course, they wouldn't do a hardware demonstration because that would be very bad. But you could get in a situation where they're like, hey, can you show us how your code works to a flight termination? Because we want to verify it works. Because this is a very important part of this launch. Remember, this launch is very close to South Powder Island. So you want to make sure that your rocket is able to terminate itself if something goes wrong.
Yes, we never want to see it happen, but it's good to know that the option exists.
Yes.
Yeah, all I can think back to is the in-flight abort test for Falcon 9 back in January of 2020.
Oh, that was... That Dragon in-flight abort looked amazing. And again, that's like another great example of safety mechanisms being tested here. Because you never want to use this, but it feels very good to know that it works if you would use it.
Yes.
Because it's your safety line. Exactly.
And Patrick in our back channel asking when Starship in-flight abort. Hopefully we don't need one, but if SpaceX... I'm sure if NASA asked for one, they might, but I doubt they would.
There's a good chance we might see one if orbital launch maybe not goes exactly as planned. You could see an in-flight abort.
Again, test. Yes, in-flight abort test. We should specify on that one. Hopefully not blowing up at all, but hopefully an intentional one, we'll say, not unintentional.
Yeah.
So we have a question here from John. When we were looking at the rollout yesterday, there were some really interesting things that we saw, like engine covers and all of that. But what are some of the changes we saw to Booster 7 since we had last seen it after they brought it back in and then rolled it back out yesterday? Chris, Adrian, either of you want to take that?
Well, I think we've seen some engine shields now. We've seen the aft look different. I'm going to find a tweet, if I can, 1 second, which just shows how well the aft looks now. Oh, 1 second. There we go. I've got a tweet. I'll put it into chat because that is a great view of the aft of Booster 7 now. There we go. Let's put it into there. And there it is. I'm going to give it to Patrick as well because he's asking for it. I wonder what that beep was. There we go. And you can share it on screen, which will save you clicking on a link, which was the whole purpose of that. But never mind. And that just shows the improvements to the aft where the engine shielding is there. And that helps protect the vehicle during ignition. It'll also help with the static fire test as well. That's a very important point to make. So a lot of progress has been made on Booster 7 in that respect. But let's remember that Booster 9 is also out there right now without engines. But Booster 9 is a more modified vehicle compared to Booster 7.
That is very true. Yeah, that's going to be the big changes is once we see what work they've done on Booster 9. Really, but the big thing obviously is right there, the shielding you see down by the Raptor 2 engines at the bottom there. Which we also have a question here from FMC asking, can SpaceX change a Raptor 2 engine on Booster 7 without taking it off the orbital launch mount now that they seem enclosed? And Adrian, I don't know if you know the answer to that, but we have seen them occasionally change out Raptor engines near the orbital launch mount. I don't know, can they do it on it?
We have seen them doing on it. Actually, they have the platform, which they can raise to do it. The question, if this might be blocked by shielding, I very much doubt it, because that would basically mean that once one engine breaks, you would have to do a full destack and then roll back to the and remove engine covers and everything. Like that would be a lot of hustle to replace an engine. So I doubt that, and I think they will be able to, if one engine, doesn't behave properly doing the 33 engine, for example. I think they would be able to change it just like that. We saw them change engines on the booster before on the orbital launch mount, and I do not think that ability is gone with the shielding.
Yeah, that's important again, especially as we were talking about earlier with if they go for a static fire and say one of the engines doesn't light or they see an issue with just a few of the engines, they can go and do a quick swap around with an engine, it seems like, at that point. Now, the other question I saw here from Greg is, do you think that they will need to do more work on the orbital launch mount itself before the 33 engine static fire, which I know we've already seen since the 14 engine static fire that they've added more plating and more armoring and protection to the OLM itself. But do you think they might need to do any more ahead of the 33 engine static fire? And follow up on my part, what do you think they may have to do after, or would they have to do anything after the 33? Chris, you want to take that one? Or Adrian, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris. Oh, Chris, would you want to take that, or should I?
You take it, Adrian.
Okay. I think it is a realistic expectation to expect some repairs on the ground service equipment. You will not get everything right the first time. We saw that, for example, with Artemis 1. You will have some damages, and from these damages you will learn what to shield better in the future. So expecting that the pad will not be damaged at all during the orbital launch test, I think would be very optimistic. There will probably be some minor, hopefully only minor damages. The question is, will it be anything major, like I don't know, a leg fell off? Weird example, but like you get the point. Is it something they could repair easily, or something that would require major maintenance? And they will learn from that. They will shield that better, because that's the good thing about stage 0, which Elon talked before about. Is it doesn't really matter how much weight you add to it. It's not going to space. It's not about making it weight efficient. You can, if something is getting damaged, you can shield it better. So that's an advantage you have here. And I see the orbital launch test and the 33 engine static fire test in that regard as equally of a test of the vehicle as of the ground service equipment. So yeah, we will see how the shielding develops.
Exactly. And for those who are unaware, that is what they sometimes call the ground support equipment. So all of the orbital launch mounts, the towers, the tank farms, the fueling lines, that is stage 0, considering rockets typically have stage 1 and 2 and so on. Just a little fun clarification there, and some fun wording, because SpaceX loves their fun words like nominal, and even though that was unintentional, but all those fun wording things. Brain stopped working halfway through that sentence.
I feel that. That's normal.
I think I need to read some super chats just to clear my mind, because words are much easier to read than to think. So, thank you, Peter, for becoming a Red Team member. Thank you as well, Latami, for becoming a Red Team member. Thank you, Sean, for gifting a Red Team membership. And a thank you to Satyrus for becoming a PadRat member. And we have a whole bunch of new Capcoms joining us here as well. We've got Tyler upgrading their membership to Capcom, as well as Peter, Devil's Lightbeam, all now becoming Capcom. So thank you all for joining Capcom. As a Capcom or above, that means you also get access to our members' Discord, where you can join us in some fun space conversations and some other fun shenanigans with all of us. So make sure to hop into Discord and say hi there as well. Smooth Juice here saying, can we have a shout out to Hoppy? It's 4 years today since it got the nose cone and the start of this huge project, and we have certainly come a long way. Always got to show our love for Hoppy, right?
Actually, it's a good point as well, because Hopper did actually originally have a nose cone. That was the plan. Hopper, as she looks now, was not how she initially looked. It was envisioned to have a nose cone that blew off in a storm in the early days of Starbase, when it was just known as Boca Chica back then. And they ended up just scrapping it and putting it into a recycling bin, and that was it. They would never decided to put a nose cone back on and did the little hop test without the nose cone on top. So that's one of the few things people don't understand. That hopper originally was going to be like a pointy end up, to paraphrase Tim Dodd.
Oh man,
I mean, it makes sense in the regard that also like it changed how much they might want to do with hopper. And as we talked, for example, in our recent Falcon 9 video, aerodynamics lose drastically their effect the slower you go. So having like a nose cone for aerodynamic effect is not really useful if you look at like what the aerodynamic effects are actually on at that speed.
Oh, breaking news on SCL,
Yep.
which I'll link in chat. Falcon Heavy is rolling out.
It's
Ooh.
time.
It is time. Yes, we are keeping an eye out as Falcon Heavy also prepares for its first launch of 2023, scheduled for later this week from Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. So it'll be exciting to keep an eye on that. And a reminder, there are 5 Falcon Heavy launches scheduled for this year as well. So some love over on the Space Coast side. And as mentioned, you can watch that over on Space Coast Live if we got a second screen to split between the two of us here. And I do want to also point out that, as you mentioned, there was that fantastic video about Falcon 9 and how it goes from launch to landing that you can watch as well, that DOS did
There we
on our
go.
channel. So definitely bookmark that for after the stream. But there you go. On the left, you can see the HIF, the Horizontal Integration Facility. The door is open there, and that is where Falcon Heavy will be rolling out. And in the bottom right, kind of middle of your screen there is 39A as they prepare for launch there, as we continue to keep an eye on that. And go ahead.
You can actually see Falcon Heavy, by the way. You can see the right next to the horizontal integration building in the hangar. You can see how it is on like horizontally rolling away from it. It's very visible.
Keep it rolling, rolling, rolling. Oh wait, that could be a
Copyright
copyright
strike.
Yeah.
Rip the channel.
Sorry, Chris. I'll pay for that one. A few other quick super chat questions here as well. Maker's Ease asking, are the pick points still on the nose of Starship? And would they have to be destacked for them to remove, or can they do it while it is stacked? And I don't think they can access much with Ship 24, especially towards the top of it, once things are fully stacked, correct? Or is there still access on the tower there? I don't know
Good
if...
question.
Yeah, Adrian, if you know that one.
It's a good question about how much access they have. They're still like it's still not removed. So it's a good question how much the access they actually have on top of the stack, because it's quite high in the air. So that's also why there's a lot of speculation about if this is really the final stack, because there's still some things to do at the top of the boost of the ship, and it's not really the most accessible place to do all of that work while it's on a booster like 70 meters in the air. So yeah, that's fueling a lot of these these theories that this might not be the final stack.
So from my understanding right now, in terms of easiest access points to the booster and the ship, the main ones are there's a walkway attached to the SQD, the quick disconnect, and there is a walkway that you can go out and access on the chopsticks, correct?
Yes, that would be the 2 easiest way to get to there. But then, of course, you get into a problem where if you want to reach the top of the ship, for example, where a few of these points they would want to access are, you cannot really put like a cherry picker. Yeah, you cannot really put a cherry picker on top of the chopsticks, right? So that would make it a bit harder to reach. I wonder, you could probably access this, but again, the question, why would you do that there and not while you're still on the ground?
And Patrick, there with the great view, you can see these access points and the connection points that we've been talking about as well. You see them right near the nose cone, those little connectors that are used to move it around. So when we're talking about whether they're going to keep those on or not, those are the little items we're talking about. And keeping in mind that there are heat shield tiles that are removed from that area to keep those in place as well. So that's all the questions as well in regards to if there are concerns about the heat shield too.
Yeah, and of course, we are talking about like somebody pointed out and said, like worker safety as well. Do you want to operate in such high conditions, and if you can just do it on the ground? Like it's all parts of reducing the risk here.
Exactly. Let's see, we got a couple more super chat questions here that we'll hit, and then we'll hit some more questions from all of you out there in chat as well, but you can tag us at NASASpaceflight. We have a question here that's an interesting one from Nick asking, what is the indication that we use that stacking is close enough to start a live stream? So what are the things we look for before we go live? And I think that's a great question for you, Chris.
Yeah, well, we all look at ship. We all think, okay, well, we'll wait for the stabilizer to go in, and maybe we'll wait for some signs that the pad's clear, and then we all go, oh, well, chat's asking for live commentary. They're asking. No, let's go live then. And 3 hours later, they're still waiting for the thing to be lifted. So there are indications. I mean, obviously, when the ship rolled towards the chopsticks and the chopsticks decide to close around the attach points, we all thought, well, it's getting closer, but we really don't know when they actually will lift. It's one of those things where we're at least live now. We're live anyway with the live streams, but with commentary as well. So they do start to lift it any minute, let's hope, then we're at least live for it. But yeah, we basically just go on a whim and just see what we think we can do with it as far as starting a live stream.
Yeah, it's like if we sit around here anyway, why not just provide some commentary, right?
Very true. I don't think there's any of us that don't have these live streams up, at least on some monitor around the house while we're doing stuff. We've got Andrew here sending his greetings from Stockport, England. Hoping y'all have a fantastic day. Appreciate using y'all from England as well there.
Yeah. By the way, Stockport, I've been there a few times to York City. Yeah, it's in Lancashire, across the Pennines.
I'm sure there were words in there that made sense to some of our viewers, so I appreciate that.
It will to the person from Stockport, yeah, Edgeley Park, yes.
I mean, there's another port today that might it's more spaceport, but it might be getting some attention today on in the United Kingdom, right?
Oh yes,
because there is the Virgin Orbit launch coming up maybe today.
Oh yes, and people keep asking if we're going to cover that live. First of all, we only really do live streams for launches if we've got a camera there. Most of the time, that's obviously one of the main caveats of us doing a live stream where we bring something different from view. But because this would be basically a live stream of a plane taking off, we won't see the launch. And I think there's a lot of people going to it thinking they're going to see the launch itself. What it is basically an air launch. So the live stream from Virgin Orbit will be the one to go to, and that's what we're going to watch ourselves. We will be broadcasting launches from Scotland, all being well. That's something we're looking forward to. That's where you actually will see the rocket launch. So that's what I'm personally looking forward to.
Yes. Oh, yeah. From the ground, you would basically get the view of what it looks like when an airplane flies overhead. We've got Vorex here asking, if Stack, would they do wet dress rehearsal the same day, or is that a different day? And I don't think we've seen a Stack and a wet dress in the same day from Starbase here, have we?
I would just call doubt on that based on the fact where we are also on the timing perspective, because if they would have stacked 5 a.m. in the morning, okay, you still have you have a lot of time, but with this now, until they are fully stacked, it's probably a bit of time. And then until you verified everything, and then until you cleared the pad, and then you have a lot of steps that you still need to do after that. So I would doubt that they would do it on the same day. And I think based on there's they on the website they also already said closure concluded, beach open. So there's not even any note of a potential road closure today anymore. So yeah. I would say no.
Yeah, and a lot of it, again, is also those road closure notices that we get if they're going to be doing testing, as well as the overpressure notices for engine testing. So that's a lot of where we get some of that info from as well. And Giovanni asking here, how realistic is the late February, early March launch prediction of Starship made by Elon that he was tweeting about? And I think this is a good chance for each of us to kind of take a vote of where we think we're at in terms of launch date predictions. Because I personally think all of us agree that that's a little ambitious. But Adrian, let's start with you. Where do you think they're going to go in terms of when launch?
I would say it's surprisingly realistic. I would call it. So yeah, I think it will slip a bit. That's just the nature of this program and rocket programs in general. But yeah, it doesn't sound impossible to me.
Chris, what do you think?
I think it's realistic if everything goes right and they get the FAA approval without any large amount of negotiations required. I think the testing is going to plan so far. I think if this WDR goes well and they destack and they get the static fire out of the way, that validates it for launch. That's when I'll start feeling optimistic about a launch within, say, 4 weeks. So that's what I'm looking for now, is get through this test cycle, get to the point that they've got the vehicle static fired, because ship's been static fired, let's face it. Ship has now been completed on its static fire tests. So that's validated. If they can validate the booster to a launch configuration, then I think, 4 weeks from then is realistic for all the paperwork to be fast and for all the I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed.
Yes, I agree. It is definitely realistic, but I'm going to be the Debbie Downer, and I always go with Elon time, as I've been calling it for quite a while, and I usually add 2 to whatever that is. So I think if we're figuring February, March, I'm going to go with probably March, April instead. But that's just me. Hopefully, I'm wrong, and I really want them to prove me wrong and see this launch as soon as possible, of course. So let's go back to some more of our viewer questions here. All Things Space asking that they heard that the Pez dispensers have been sealed. That is true, correct? The Pez dispensers that will be used to deploy payloads, especially for the ships that are on there now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much looking like there's no payload here. So that's for more likely that there won't be any payload on this mission, and they might do that on a later date, on a later flight. But I mean, they will do, because that's the point of this rocket, to have payload. But they might do payload. Okay. Yeah, that's probably not this flight.
So eventually that'll be used, hopefully, especially for the Starship V2s. Those once those get going. Now that SpaceX has already started launching some of those Starlink satellites into the second-generation constellation, we haven't seen the full second-gen satellites yet, especially the ones that the larger ones that will need to be launched from Starship. But that'll eventually, I think, be one of the first actual payloads. Now, the other question from Mark Jones here is, what do you think SpaceX will use for a mass simulator for Starship, or does it even need a mass simulator? Because I know in the past we've seen some companies use concrete, we've seen SpaceX use a wheel of cheese and a Tesla. So, Chris, do you think we even need a mass simulator? And if so, what kind of craziness do you think we might see on this one? Or would it be something boring?
No, I don't think we do need it, but if we did, I hope it'd be a Cybertruck.
Ooh.
That's just me. I just want to see it launch a Cybertruck just for fun. Go, well, we'll use Falcon Heavy's maiden launch to launch a Tesla Roadster. We're using Starship to test launch a Tesla Cybertruck. And it'd be a great advertisement program for this vehicle. I'm about to release that. So maybe even a semi-truck, a Tesla truck. That'd be even better, wouldn't it? Just to emphasize that Starship is a big step up in the up-mass capability of the vehicles they've got. I don't think they need it. I think, again, we're talking about the Pez dispenser and whatever. I think the initial launches of Starship, obviously not the immediate ones, but the future ones in the initial test program to get it into a stage of operation, is for Starlink V2. So that's what they're going for with that, and they'll go from there. I think it's a long way off before we'll start seeing a crewed variant of it, but Elon has already preempted that by saying he wants to see I think he said thousands, but I don't know if he meant thousands. But lots and lots and lots of uncrewed launches before they put a crew on this vehicle. So that's probably a good 5 years away at least before we start seeing crew on it. Again, the HLS program is in play, but that is still a good while away from Artemis's standpoint because there's less. That's not a problem.
Exactly, because as of right now, Artemis 2, which would be the crewed mission that just goes around the moon, doesn't land, is looking at least 2024 with the potential for that to slip further. And then after that, you would then finally get to Artemis 3, which will be the first one that will have crew that will land on the moon for the first time since 1972. So there is still some time for SpaceX to get the uncrewed version tested multiple times, launched a bunch of times, fine-tuned, so that it's ready for people and for NASA's Human Launch Services program and Artemis 3 and 4's lunar landings. While we have a second here, do just want to remind you that we are currently waiting for the lift of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7. This is a live view you're seeing here at Starbase in Texas. And in the meantime, we are answering your questions while we wait for the lift to occur. And those questions are being asked by tagging us at NASASpaceflight in chat. Speaking of questions from you in chat, let's take another one of those. Someone here asking, let's see, Simon Fisher asking, what do y'all think? What percentage of a full prop load will they need for an orbital flight test? My guess would be that they would want to fill it all the way to the top and test the full capabilities of this rocket, correct? Adrian?
Yeah, I would be surprised if not. And I feel like especially for the first flight, they will want to give them every margin and every possible propellant they could get. And I don't know if there would even be a situation. There could even be a situation where you want to fuel them all the way up, because that's what all the systems and the Raptors and everything want to have for flight pressure, and it would not make it that easy to just fill it half up. So, yeah, I think it will be fully loaded for the orbital launch.
I think that's probably the safe bet. Again, it also verifies all of your systems as well, all your ground support, all of your tanks, all of your pumps and everything once it's in flight as well. So if nothing else, even if you don't use all the fuel, I think it's a good test, and especially if down the line you plan to actually go for a landing as opposed to a splashdown, to have that extra margin I don't think hurts either. And again, at this point we don't know for sure yet if the first one will be a splashdown or a landing attempt and to be caught, which kind of ties into another question here that Cody Bucks asked, that is an interesting question of, will they need the water, I guess we'll keep calling it the deluge system for the sake of this question, on landing and catch as well, since it will basically be right back in the same area of the orbital launch mount. Chris, what do you think?
I have no idea, but that's a great question.
Yeah, speculation. I think it might be an option, but what do you think? Adrian, then what do you think?
I do not think so. I think it's not even, like, it will not be caught right over the orbital launch mount. It will be a bit away. And also you have the situation that it's not all 33 engines, for example, lighting up for the catch. It will be very, very little engines that are firing. So, yeah, no, I do not think the deluge system will fire for landing.
That's a really good question, though. Also, the fact of how much they end up using as well, just on liftoff itself. I'm sure they would have enough to fire it up again, but you'd have to specifically load up the FireX to be ready for that.
I love how chat just keeps baiting us over and over again with the lift calls. I'm like, no, it's not so far.
Lift, 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 lift. I know I'm just making it worse, but until all of a sudden it actually does lift, we say, oh, yay, they're chanting. They go, no, it's actually moving, which it is not yet. All right, let's keep going back here. More questions. While we're talking about the orbital launch mount on the base there, Michael Bullock was asking, is cladding required not just on the orbital launch mount, but on the tower for a launch? And is there cladding on the tower there, too?
Yeah, there is some cladding already put on. You can see on the left-hand side of the tower there, that's cladding. I think the plan is, especially based on the renders and the SpaceX official videos, that they are planning to clad the tower itself. So that's something we can look forward to. And also, I want to point this out that we were just talking about Falcon Heavy rolling out at 39A. The tower at 39A for Starship is built. It's just waiting for its chopsticks to be attached. We saw the carriage roll out recently. The chopsticks will follow, which are shorter chopsticks compared to ones at Starbase. But we can also expect a mirror of that tower from they're going to do with Starbase. So if they clad the tower at Starbase, they'll clad the tower at 39A, and we can expect 2 more towers possibly at LC49. So it's exciting times. We're learning as we go here. A lot of the things we'll see at Starbase we'll see employed at KSC and so on, the other pads as well, as they expand the launch site footprint for Starship.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's take another question here from you guys. Brandon asking, we can see in some of these views, stage 0, the ground equipment there, venting. Why is it venting today if there is a lift? I believe part of that has to do with some pressurization as well, right?
Yeah, there might be a situation where they want to pressurize this booster before they put a giant chip on it, because yeah, it gains more stability from that. So you have the ground surface equipment up and running. We don't exactly know why it's happening, and we don't know the exact flow, but that's the most likely situation why they have the GSE running. So I do not think like that it's like any test related, because nothing is cleared, nothing is in any way looking like there might be any test today. So yeah, it's just probably lift related, and we saw that on earlier lifts where the tank farm showed some activity.
Yes. Hang on. All right, let's see. Another question here. Spaceflight's asking, not sure if this has been answered, but what do you think the furthest milestone for the ship and booster will be on this first flight? And Chris, I'll send this over to you first.
Well, I'm sure I've got internal goals of how far I want to take this, but I think a full mission success is a lot to ask for the first flight. I think SpaceX has got experience with losing vehicles in the experimental stage. Let's remember, they did a fun video themselves of how to land an orbital rocket, which is where they had vehicles exploding on the ADSS, the drone ships. And I think anything to MECO would be a massive success. It might not be played as such in the mainstream media because they don't understand what the test flight program is about. But I think anything to MECO would be a classic success. Any ride during first stage where the vehicle stays together and gets to MECO, and maybe even Starship ignition, that'd be massive. So anything past that would be a success. As far as objectives, that's all really going to do is see how far they can take it as an objective. I don't think they've got anything else apart from that to do as an objective. It is all about testing the ground support equipment during launch, the vehicle during ascent, and hopefully how it controls. Remember the wonderful video we saw of SN8 where they've got the first real data, the real-time data of the vehicle coming back belly flop style under control. We're all like stunned by that because that was something they had to test. They could do as many computational models as they wanted to. They could do as many wind tunnel models as they wanted to. But to see it happen in real time with a vehicle was just a huge success, and it validated what they were doing there. So it's all about validation. And I think 33 Raptors, I mean, they'll probably lose a few during uphill, but that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to lose a few Raptors if it needs to and still keep on going. But if they can get this launch going uphill to stage separation, massive success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think everything that gets to MECO is already wow. If they get to second stage ignition, have a Starship burning, burning its engine, that's definitely one where I would consider this an absolute cool flight. And yeah, I think that would be my baseline of where I would hope this goes. I think, as you said, Chris, there will be some media and some people that will not probably look at this, and we saw this with the test flights of the earlier vehicles where basically SpaceX said before, hey, this might go boom, and then it went boom, and everybody was like, oh, it went boom. Like, yeah,
You know what?
they said it might.
what I find interesting is that the test flight program, we've seen the likes of some media say Tesla car runner Elon Musk's vehicle. And that's how they start off the angle of their negative approach. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of people are well aware of, how it works in some elements of the media. But he's probably got a bigger target on his head now because of Twitter said it's something to be very careful of as far as people who may only be taking an interest in this during this first test flight. But also we can go back and almost qualify what the test program's about when we look back at Hopper with the short hops, the 150-meter hop, which is amazing. The Tim Dodd screen, water towers can fly. It was the first real step towards what we're seeing right now. And it wasn't that long ago. That's the amazing thing about that hop on the left-hand side of the screen right now. That test flight, 150-meter hop, wasn't that long ago. And look at where they've come. Look at these vehicles on the right-hand side in the middle of the screen now. This is the world's most powerful, the biggest rocket ever built and ever to be launched. Hopefully. We're expecting to be launched, I should say. And the progression in what is a short amount of time, despite the fact that they've not launched a test flight in about over a year now, is incredible. And I think we've got to be very careful to understand the progression here because we saw the test flights of SN5 and SN6. Those hops, those controlled hops over to the other pad, they were fantastic. I still go back to SN8 as an amazing achievement despite it exploding on landing. Just seeing the flip for the first time as well. There are so many things they've got in the bag now that you can expect a failure not to be dramatic because they have, as you can see on the screen right now, Booster 9 ready to go if they lose Booster 7 and Ship 24. So if they do lose that vehicle, it's not dramatic. They've still got the next vehicles down the road. They've got Booster 10 and other vehicles and Ship 25 and Ship 26 down at the production site pretty much ready to go. So it's an incredible cadence they can achieve even if they lose Booster 7 and Ship 24. So it's very careful to understand the bigger picture here because with other vehicles like I'll say SLS, if they'd lost SLS in the same fashion they may lose Booster 7 and Ship 24, it's a bigger deal because SLS core stage 2 is a long way away from launching. So it's not like that with Starbase. They've got the next vehicles ready to go almost. They've got to put engines on Booster 9 for a start, but it's going to be a faster test program on the ground testing side.
Yeah, it's definitely the advantage of being like hardware-rich program. I would say that if you have that much hardware, losing hardware is not as significant as in a low cadence and low flight hardware where everything is dependent on this single rocket and this single launch to go right. I mean, you could also make these arguments for for example, some of the other methane rockets. It would be way worse to lose Vulcan on the first flight, I would say, than Starship, because Vulcan is set up to be successful from the start, where Starship is more test and fly and develop it over the pace. It's just an approach. It's not. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's a different approach how to look at how you can run such a program and how you can test these and go through the flows. Let's see, we have more questions here. Remember again, if you have any questions to us at NASASpaceflight in chat, make sure to tag us here. Then we see that in a handy software where we can pick your questions and make sure we answer them. And there's actually a question here by David Edwards about the details. Can Starship re-enter with those missing tiles and not explode? I would heavily imagine not, right, Chris? Like these look like more critical, especially like the front tiles. Like for sure they need to be there.
Yeah, that was it's similar to a question I asked earlier about the comparison to Shuttle losing tiles, and there is examples to be made there because Shuttle could lose tiles, despite people thinking that was like if you lost one tile, be dramatic. STS-1 onwards, you can tell from Columbia's STS-1, there's lots of tiles lost on that one, but still came back fine. It depends where you lose them. And that is why we had some serious issues, not least Columbia herself on STS-107. It's where you lose the TPS. That's the critical area because you don't want heating in certain parts of the vehicle. Starship is a lot more forgiving because it is one big flying tank compared to a shuttle orbiter, which has ailerons and all the business like that. And you can talk about the flaps and whatever, but it's completely different to what is a lifting body of the space shuttle. So, yes, they can lose tiles and they'll still be fine. I also mentioned earlier in the answer to the question that came up earlier was that they may want to lose some tiles just to get some data on how it reacts when it loses tiles, because that will help them thinking forward if they need to do any changes to the design or anything like that. I personally think they'll be fine, but it's a good question. It's there for a reason. The TPS, if they didn't need TPS, it wouldn't be on there. But I think they can lose tiles and still be okay, providing they don't lose too many and in critical areas.
Just to point out again, because people are trying to do this again, the stabilizers are not in, guys. So if you try to troll us with the lift, make sure the stabilizers are in first. You could scream stabilizers. That would get us more likely. I'm just giving you like hints how to do that better.
What time's the road closure till today? Have they not done a road closure at all now? Is it completely removed?
The road closure they had scheduled is at closure concluded beach open, and the road is open right now for this.
Right. Okay.
So this is no road closed situation right now.
Right, and as we pointed out before, it's not necessarily required that they close the road for the ship lift onto the boosters as well. Here's an interesting question. Thank you, Adrian, for taking some of those. Why doesn't SpaceX test the booster itself separately instead of the full stack? Because like we saw in the early days, ships 8 and so on do their own, 12.5 kilometer tests. Why don't we see something similar with the booster?
I can take that because I know what the plan was. Originally, Elon did tweet that they were thinking of doing a 10-kilometer hop with the booster. I think then he refined it to a 100-meter hop with the booster. So they were planning on doing a test flight with the booster alone, but they obviously cancelled that plan, probably because of the amount of engines involved. They probably didn't get the right amount of data by only using like 3 or 4 engines. So that makes sense that they changed that plan. But it was originally something they were going to do. They were going to test flight the booster on its own, just do a hop. And that was then cancelled. I think thanks to the success of not least SN5 and SN6, because I think it was around that time he tweeted about the booster, they decided, well, let's just go forward with full stack. So that technically is a amount of time they're taking off the timeline of developing this vehicle, that they've decided not to go with that separate test program and just go straight to the full stack. So despite the fact that we probably wait for this full stack launch for longer than we may have wanted to in the long run, because we've been spoiled by the cadence of testing at Starbase, we are now closer to what will be a full stack launch, which is a major milestone.
Oh yeah, that's going to be really exciting. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Adrian?
Yeah, just like the good news is that we had fog or like low hanging clouds earlier today, like an hour ago. They are now gone, it seems, so that's good in terms of visibility for this for the stacking operation. So we won there, I would say. We won there. And by saying that, I totally jinxed it.
I mean, we do get the gorgeous view, at least here still, where you can kind of get the view of southeastern Texas. That good old US of A view there. We've got a couple super chat questions as well, kind of along the same line here. Keith Carson, thank you for the support as well, asking, do we know if the tank farm gets topped off for the wet dress, if it's been topped off yet, for the wet dress rehearsal campaign, especially as we hopefully approach these 33 engine tests coming up?
They do not need it fully topped off for everything they need to launch. There's margin there. So they do not need everything full. They will have, of course, a significant amount of fluids there. So yeah, but it's we don't know how much they would fill it. It's a lot of effort to get this much of liquids to Starbase, because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So you probably would only get stuff there as you need it. And of course, that also becomes a consideration here, because if you run into a situation where you have scrubs after scrubs, and you need to over and over attempt this orbital launch, of course you try to recycle things with the recondensers, and you will get some of your propellants back and some of your oxygen, but you will always have some loss. So you need to replenish that every day, and you need to make sure you're still on the margin to orbital launch. So that will also be interesting to watch. It's kind of like the replenishment game that SLS had during its launch campaign.
Very true there. We do have one here that is related slightly off topic from Starship for just a second, and I do have to mention it because it is coming up tonight. And Crispy, I'll throw this over to you because we have the launch coming tonight with Virgin, but there's other rockets launching from Europe. So which do you think will reach orbit first, Chris? Orbex Prime from Sutherland or Skyrora XL from Saxovord?
That's a good question. I like both of those companies and their rockets equally. That's quite unfortunate. I'm going to go with Skyrora. I think Skyora's long-term plan, and also the way they've been testing things in the background without making a big deal out of it, like some companies do, is very encouraging. I just find what their progression is on their path towards launch is very much something that I think will bring them some success. So yeah, I'm going to go with Skyrora. That's a good question, though.
That is a really good question. Yes, thank you, Sebastian, for the super chat question with that. Techran asking here, is it possible that Starbase will be an R&D facility only, meaning all of the launches will happen at the Cape, even the orbital launch? Now, I know that we have talked about that the plan is to use this primarily as a research and development site, but do you see a point where it's only launches from the Cape and 0 launches from Texas, or maybe a combination? Adrian, what do you think?
I mean, we are right now looking at the orbital launch campaign going on in Starbase, so that answers part of it. I do think we know from the environmental assessment, which we read on stream here, that there is a limited amount that right now is in the orbital assessment, in the environmental assessment, in how much they can launch. And I think that will kind of be the cadence they might go for here, and it will mostly be R&D launches. It will mostly be maybe like internal launches. I do think the majority of the launches will be the Cape. But yeah, there will be launches from Boca. This is not only like there will actual launches happen here.
Can I also just give my opinion on that, because I think it's a really good question. We're getting some brilliant questions, by the way. Thank you, chat. I think that the way they're looking at this from a standpoint of the environmental assessment and also the way that KSC has been set out is that Starbase will launch maybe at the most 8 launches a year, which is great. That's fine for our cameras, and we'll enjoy covering those in depth. But also, it'll be their development center, so we'll see the first variants of improvements they'll make to the vehicles being launched from Starbase, whereas the actual workhorse launch site of Starship will be at KSC. And that makes sense because 39A is set up for that. Let's face it, it's Kennedy Space Center, it's the East Coast. It's their 39A as well. They're leasing it from Space Florida. So it makes perfect sense. And also, their extra cadence of 49. If LC49, which is now the year into that assessment report, which was meant to be a year, I've asked some of the NASA guys if they can find out any more progress on that one. But LC49 envisions 2 towers. So that will give them 3 towers on the East Coast. And there's also potential of them using their other sites on the East Coast. So the East Coast will be their workhorse launch place. So when we're talking about all these launches of Starship, which Elon envisions of many, many, many launches of Starship, I think the bulk will be from Florida. So that's fine. But also the excitement of Starbase will be that we'll see the newest versions of Starship from launch from South Texas. Everybody wins as far as I'm concerned.
But if they had the 3rd tower, then we lose our Lord of the Rings jokes with the 2 towers.
Oh, dearie me.
Oh yeah, only 2. Sorry, only 2 allowed. It's the only reference I get, so we need to contain that reference. It's precious. It's my precious.
I see what you did there, my precious. A few other quick super chats here. Douglas Sutherland with 2 of them, one without the message, and a second one, thank you again for sending it with the message, asking, was the autogenous pressurization test a success?
Well, we have not seen it since then, like such a test anymore since then, and so I would say yes. It was either a test or such a failure that they would never try again. So I would say probably a success.
Which one was Elon? Elon replied, good chamber pressures. I can't remember which test that was, if that was the autogenous one or not. But Elon did reply to a tweet I did of the firing, and he replied, good chamber pressures. So I presume that test went well. I just can't remember which one it was now off the top of my head. But again, to back up what Adrian said, I've not seen it since. They do repeat tests. They don't have a good success. So we can pretty much claim that's a good success.
I'll take it. I'll consider that a success as well then. And then I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Asking here, will they need to destack Starship to empty the booster of nitrogen and refill it with propellant, or can the empty/depressurized booster support Starship?
I have to digest that question. So
There, it should be on the screen for you now, so you can read through it
okay,
too.
thank you. Will they need to do destack a Starship to empty booster of nitrogen and refill with propellant? No, they can refill. Like we've seen propellant tests and like filling tests while they were stacked, so they can do that. That's the answer, I think, to that question. Like the question is if they could empty and refill it. I think once the configuration is stable, you can detank it and refill it with propellant, and like once that is stable, it works. I just think during the lift, they prefer to have a pressurized, so it gives you like a little bit of extra stability.
Yes, it's the one time where it's good to be under pressure. Oh wait, I gotta be careful again of copyrights.
And the second one.
Boy, 3 strikes and you're out. Although at this point we are going to do a little switcheroo here with our commentary team. Chris B, I know it's a little late over where you are, so you can hopefully get something to eat ahead of tonight's Virgin launch as well. So Chris Bergen, thank you very much for joining us here on this stream so far.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you, and I'm totally not just saying that because you're the boss. But thank you, Chris. And in his place, we are going to actually head on down to Starbase, and one of our fantastic people on the ground over there joining us now is Nick Answeeney. How's it going, Nick?
Yo! Boy, we're getting a full stack today! Woo! Maybe, hopefully. Better. Hit better. I'm excited for it, so it has to happen. I'm pretty sure that's how that works, right?
This was the first excited screaming in the world where you could hear the asterisks. It was like, yay! Asterisks, maybe.
I'm super excited, kind of, maybe, hopefully, sort of.
Hopefully. If it doesn't happen, I'll be excited whenever it happens, but I'm sure I'm excited right now. And yeah, it's a beautiful day out here. Weather's nice and temperate, which is shocking. Typically, there's either like a pretty stout sea breeze or something that's, adding some wind factor for their lifting ops. But today, it's nice and still. The sun is shining. It's a little bit overcast, which is nice. It's not too hot. The mosquitoes are, well, the mosquitoes are still around. They never go away. They suck your soul. But yeah, it's awesome, and we might get a stack. Woo!
Oh man, I could totally relate to that as well with the Florida side here with those mosquitoes. So I hear you. And I think first question to ask here is, how much coffee have you had, and how much do I need to drink to match your energy levels right now?
I do not drink coffee. I do not drink tea. I do not do caffeine. I have had a few bottles of water though. So if you want to do that, I just haven't slept really. I think I got like 3 hours of sleep last night, something like that. But that's how it goes out here, you know?
All right, so there you go, everyone. There's your notes of if you're tired, so drink a lot of water, don't sleep, and be standing really close to a Starship booster and a ship that's getting ready to be lifted on top of it. Easy. That's all it takes, right?
Stay hydrated, basically. That's the message we are trying to convey here. Also,
Yes.
what's the status, Nick? Do you see anything? What is your expectation
How
Well,
soon might this go?
I am glad that you just asked that, because I just heard a PA and I stepped away for a second to try to hear what the PA was, but it was a little garbled. So we're going to ask Mr. Spiders here if he has heard anything. Did you hear that? But I definitely heard the words park. Oh, that's the Claxton. Okay.
Oh, that's the lifting
doing a whole
alarm.
pad clear. That's the Claxton going for a whole pad clear. That is good. I have not gotten the boot yet. So that's exciting. I might go start setting up a few cameras. I will still be here hanging around, but I might be quiet for a minute here. I will see y'all in a second.
So, just to point out, if I may, Sawyer,
Go right
this
ahead.
alarm there is basically get out of here, we are doing something, clear the pad, lift alarm. Like, this is we heard it before every other lift. So this is good. This is really, really good. This might be the start of lifting operations.
Yes, the one time it's good to hear an alarm sound like that. It's kind of nice,
It's
actually, hearing the cool background noise from it.
Yeah, it's actually like just a stock alarm sound. So
It's actually my ringtone. I made it my ringtone. So if anyone calls me on the old-fashioned telephone, that is what my phone says.
Oh boy. Do you want to head over to some super chats while we have you here as well, Nick? And Douglas Hubbard coming in with a $100 super chat here saying, it's time for Starship to get off the ground. Literally. And we agree with you completely on that, Douglas. Thank you so much for the unbelievable support there. Again, all of you supporting us really helps us to be able to bring you these live streams and to get you all these camera views that you're seeing right now and everything that we do. So it's from contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. And I'm not just saying that because of PBS, but genuinely that keeps us going here. So a huge thank you.
I believe we have a camera by, I think that's Jack? If I see that correctly? Yes, it's Jack.
Yes.
So we have a camera angle here. And here you can actually see how the stabilizers are not in. You can see the right stabilizer here below the chopstick, and it's not connected yet. So the next thing we are waiting for now is these stabilizers to grab the ship left and right and be basically prepared for going up. So this is a great angle for seeing these stabilizers are not connected yet.
Yes. So yes, we have our great teams out on the ground there as well. So Nick and Jack are both down currently at Starbase, bringing us some of these views in addition to our robotic army, like you're seeing there as well. So
Oh,
again,
it's an army. They'll uprise and conquer us all one of these days.
you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. The AI rising is about to. No, I'm kidding.
I think Nick, you predicted that for like the biggest space mishap in 2023, right? So like that's
I didn't actually get to tune into NSF Live yesterday, so I didn't know if you guys actually brought that up. But yes, that was my biggest prediction.
Yes.
The biggest space mishap will be DOS's robot army taking over the world.
It happens.
I think, again, if we just keep feeding them, keep giving them the photons, I think we'll be okay. Right? Hopefully.
Oh, I agree. Just gotta feed the robots.
Basically, all you do, right? You run from A to B and just put like batteries next to them, like here.
Little AA batteries.
A few other quick super chats here. Lonnie also with the big support. No message, but thank you very much as well for your generous super chats as well. And then Tyler Corrigan with a super chat here with a question as well, asking, will they have to move Booster 9 before the static fire? And I know we've seen in some of the shots there is a booster sitting right nearby our launch pad here, right?
Yeah, I think there's a very likely chance that before they static fire this, they want to remove this booster. It's just in terms of risk mitigation, why not do it? You will have things flying around during a static fire, and especially doing a 33 engine static fire. So yeah, why not clear it?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that some of that may be concrete that goes flying.
Yeah, it's there's concrete evidence about that.
Oh my gosh, that was good. That was really good, Adrian. I like that.
Chat will disagree with you that was good, but I'm happy.
Right. And that's why Chad hates my jokes anyway, and that's why I liked yours. So it's fair enough. Oh boy. Here's an interesting question. While we're looking at these views, if you can kind of help talk us through this, Adrian, where exactly are the stabilizers placed? And so how is that going to work in terms of actually basically going into place ahead of lift?
Yeah, if you would imagine like holding a cola can on like one point, you would still have the situation that it could swing, right? So what you would do is if you place like one finger, I should have done it yesterday with the face cam, one finger to the left and the right lower on the cola can or like on the soda can, you suddenly have it more stabilized because it cannot swing anymore. And here come the stabilizers into play and why they are here. You can see on the shot that there's this V-shaped. That camera just said goodbye. But there's like this V-shaped structure below the chopsticks that will be able to swing in and grab the ship left and right, and then help to stabilize it on kind of like two axes, like on two horizontal levels, so it cannot swing that easily as if you would just balance it on a straw or something like that.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. I've never heard it described like that, but it does make a lot of sense. And again, that pinpoint is just, that'll also be our big indicator that we will be really close to a lift is once that does go into place. So if you hear us talking a lot about the stabilizers and where they're placed and why we keep bringing it up, that is one of the main reasons why, is that we're keeping an eye on that ahead of the lift, which again, that is what we are currently waiting for here, is the lift of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7. We just heard the klaxon going off to clear the pad from Nick's camera, and we're getting word now from Jack out in the field as well that we are getting the boot to move a little bit further away, which means that we are getting closer and closer to the lift here. I do just want to point out that we did get a response in chat, Adrian, to yours, saying that there was solid foundation on that joke.
Oh, great! I love that's the thing. With chat, like you make a great pun and chat just one ups you. It's the power of the hive mind in a chat.
Oh, geez. I think this is a good time to... Oh, there we go. There's a good view now you can see of the stabilizer zoomed in. Thank you, Patrick.
You
Right,
can see
Adrian?
the crossbar, kinda like the one that goes diagonally down to the point where they would attach, and I think you can even see like the hole they would connect to on the ship, barely below the stabilizer. So yeah, once these move in and grab the ship, that's when we are talking about a lift imminent, because these are the last kind of steps before they would raise the ship. So yeah, that's what we are watching, and I have been staring at these stabilizers for I think like 2 hours now. So
If they
yeah.
start staring back, then we know we have a problem.
Ooh. They do have cameras on them, so perhaps that is a possibility.
Oh boy, don't tell us that now.
How many cameras are there? Like there has to be like cameras everywhere, right?
Well, let's just say we watch Starbase pretty closely, but I'm pretty sure they watch themselves even closer.
Ow.
That's a good way to put it. And I mean, we actually had a question from someone asking, will the boosters have cameras when launch, or
Yes.
just the ship?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. I cannot imagine a world where they do not have cameras live streaming. No,
Yeah.
that's happening.
It will be like the maximum amount of cameras they can get on this rocket will be on this rocket.
And the other
The
thing to
entire
keep in mind-
payload, it's going to be a 20-ton payload of just cameras.
It's an optical satellite. They just launch next to it and then film it while flying.
We'll see if
Hey,
DOS
that
can reach out and
works.
get some of ours on there as well then.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that they are going to be camera views that we see, but there are plenty more camera views that we will not see, especially because a lot of those are going to be engineering cameras, things looking at specific system, things that they want to keep a close eye on themselves that might not actually go out to the public, but they're going to be super high def, 4K, everything to look at all the different systems too.
Oh, absolutely. I think we saw them before, like accidentally showing, for example, like inside tank footage on Falcon 9s. where maybe they switched to front cameras and everything. But like we saw them like showing some of these cameras, and there's engineering cameras on this. Like there's engineering cameras probably like everywhere. So they have a lot of angles.
Yeah,
inside the ignition, inside the ignition plate or the injection plate, all the cameras.
Yeah, I'd love to see how many of the cameras that are on the ground support on stage 0 end up surviving. I'm sure there's a bunch in the orbital launch mount that we'll see if the casings can handle 33 engines firing at once, especially Raptor 2s. I think while we're waiting here, I think this is a good time to go through this question. And Nick, since you're on the scene and you're going to be watching, I think this is perfect for you to answer here. A7X Danny Gaming asking, what are the steps for the stacking to be successful and for the stack to be coupled? So what are we going to be looking for and what does it take?
That's a good question. I like that. Well, we've seen a lot of the steps already. We have a booster on the pad that is compatible with the Starship at the pad, and that Starship is now being hugged by the chopsticks, which is always a good sign. I can't actually see it in person, but are the pins in or not?
The pins are not in.
Okay, so that's the next thing we're looking for is the pins, those stabilizer pins that Adrian just talked about a little bit ago, stabilizing the Coke can. But then, after the pins go in, we'll see first movement. And that'll probably be quite slow for a couple minutes, and then it'll speed up to its whatever its normal rate is, and then once it gets up to the top, it'll slow down again. They'll hold it there for a little bit, and then they'll pivot the whole Starship over the booster, and that'll be quite slow. And then they'll set it down a couple feet to rest gently on the top of the booster. And then that will conclude the lifting operations. I guess we'd probably get the QD arm swinging back and possibly connecting, but we'll see if that's automated yet.
Right, and so for the connection point, if I understand rightly, there are basically little kind of holes that it'll basically slide into on top of Booster 7, and that's essentially the same mechanism that will end up as the separating mechanism once we hit MECO, right?
Yes. So those mechanisms, as far as we can tell, are not all that mechanical. They are more of just kind of a slot that it just sits in. So we'll see how it all works. They might add some more equipment there, but it does look like it's just a kind of a tongue and groove type of fit there between the booster and the Starship.
Tongue and Groove, I like that. Why does that sound like a band name? Tongue and Groove.
Yo.
They just dropped a new album.
Oh man. Also being told from Alex in the back channel that there is a hook on each of the clamps as well. So,
but it's surprisingly like it's like if you compare this to any other stage separation mechanism on any other rocket, it's like, yeah, this is surprisingly little.
Right, a lot of them will use a pneumatic type system or some kind of separating mechanism as opposed to, oh, yeah, the clamp, let's go with the hooks. And then just the nature of the launch profile will end up separating the two of them. It just seems so simple, but hey, sometimes simplest is best. So essentially, it is the best separation mechanism is no separation mechanism, apparently.
There we go.
SSTO, confirmed. SSTO to orbit. I like it.
Yeah, it's, as Alex points out, it's a holding mechanism rather than a separation mechanism. Here's a really interesting question from Feisty Ferret, and I think both of you will probably have some input on this. We'll start with you, Adrian. Why do you think they've preserved the Ship 24 Booster 7 config when other vehicles have been scrapped before even being fully built?
Well,
ooh, that's a good... Go ahead. Sorry.
You wanted to?
No. You were addressed. I'm sorry. I'm walking and talking.
Well, in the end, you at some point I talked about this a little bit earlier. Like at some point, you have to commit to we want to launch this. You will always run into a situation where like, hey, we have a new vehicle. We have yet another new vehicle. You will always run into this never-ending cycle of updated hardware. So at some point you have to be like, okay, we want to fly something. let's fly this. Let's get it through the test campaign. It's a long test campaign. We've seen it. We have seen it here on the like last year, how long a test campaign can take. They went through this vehicle with everything, like every static fire possible, minus a 33 engine that is still coming. So at some point, yeah, they now through with everything in testing. They know this vehicle, they know it works so far. So why not go all the way through and test it?
There you go. Especially though, since we now have, Booster 9 sitting there with all of the major upgrades as well. I don't know if, Nick, maybe you have some input then as to why we're still sticking with Booster 7. Is it just because it's kind of tried and tested at this point?
Yeah, that's basically the reason. If you look at the development, I kind of like the point in development that Booster 9 is at. Booster 7 is so much further along. Granted, Booster 9 is a much more advanced vehicle with its no hydraulic systems and it's a little bit more updated design. But Booster 9 doesn't even have its engines on it, and it hasn't really completed that many static fires or even pressure tests. And so Booster 7 definitely has Booster 7 definitely has had a lot more time put into it, which would kind of mean that they're A, more comfortable with it, and B, it's definitely more ready to fly than Booster 9. So if they're trying to get to orbit quick, which last I checked around here, that is the main goal, get to orbit as fast as possible. The main goal there would be to get Booster 7 off the pad as opposed to waiting around for Booster 9. Like if there's a problem with Booster 7 in the next few weeks, as they're leading up to their the test that Elon said they want to try to do either in February or March, if there's a major problem with Booster 7 or Ship 24, I would not be surprised if we see both of those vehicles scrapped and skipped for Booster 9. But we'll see what ends up happening.
Exactly. A lot of that will depend on once they do more of the wet dress rehearsals, the static fires, and everything leading up to the hopefully very, very soon now first orbital launch test. Let's see. Again, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight in chat. Like this one from Camden asking, does Starship have something like a black box to be recovered after launch? And I do believe that at least you can even see sometimes on the boosters that there are data recorders on the side of it. Is that right? Or what appears to be, at least.
I don't think we know, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that
I would imagine there's definitely going to be telemetry being streamed down in live time. I almost guarantee that. Along with the live video feeds, there'll be as much telemetry as they can get down. But I don't know if we officially know anything about... Hold on, PA.
Anybody hear what they're saying?
Yeah, just like to add, because while Nick is listening to the PA, we know there might be, but we have not yet have any confirmation that there is a part that is flight recorder. There are parts like, for example, we can see right now.
The booster, so they're gonna put that black thing on top of the silver thing.
Okay, we heard that.
We need that on a T-shirt now.
They're gonna put that black thing on a silver thing. Yeah, but on the left camera you can see a thing that is suspected to be a flight recorder, but we don't exactly know what exactly and if they're exactly. That's the problem. We don't have like schematics of this where we can look at every part and be like, yeah, this is this according to SpaceX.
Right, yeah, there's objects that look like they are, but again, if it's anything like pretty much any other spacecraft or airplane even for that matter, there is data recorders on board and there will be a constant data stream that will be coming down, especially during the flight, and hopefully there will be some that they can recover after the flight as well that might be stored on board some of these potential black boxes or flight data recorders or whatever they may end up being. I do just want to say it was really funny hearing him talk about the black goes on the silver thing, which it reminds me a little bit of the shuttle when they had the attachment point that was black side down to put on top of the Boeing 747 to make sure the tiles went down.
Yeah,
but
you can simplify everything in the explanation, right? So that's the prime example of a good simplification of that.
Right, so again, what he's explaining is that it will be the black thing lifting onto the silver thing, and I know we have a great picture that actually Nick took himself of one of these previous lifts of the there it is, of the ship going on top of the booster. And if you want, you can own one of these as one of our fantastic metal prints at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. It's one of the really awesome Starship prints that we have in there, and we have quite a few. But this one in particular of this lift, I love with the sun in the background, the gorgeous colors. And again, these come out printed on metal. They've got all the connections and everything to hang it up easily wherever you are. And they're really high quality. I've seen them. They're unbelievably gorgeous, and I do need to get my hands on one. But you can get your hands on them, again, at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, as well as a whole bunch of other Starship merch there as well, too. So, yeah, Nick, great work on that photo that is in the shop there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And sorry I was talking there on the hot mic. There's a ton of people here in the dunes. There's quite the party going on. A lot of the people who are out here for the beach have come to see what the commotion is about. So it's a real fun atmosphere out here.
I mean, you produced like the quote of the. I feel like you just produced a quote of the stream. So
what was it?
They will put the black thing on the silver thing.
That is about the simplest way to explain it.
Yeah.
It's not wrong though.
Never wrong.
No, again, potential shirt maybe. There's also other Starship shirts in there, but we might have to add that one.
Yep.
And as someone pointed out, if you do buy it now, it will likely appear on screen, but it will not obstruct anybody's face this time. So, sorry it happened to be your face yesterday, Alex, but... let's get back to some of the questions here, again, that were tagged at NASASpaceflight in chat. I'll send this one over to you, Nick, since you get to see these every day. Leslie asking, the orbital launch mount legs are looking very bulky these days. Are there just extra protective covers on it since we've seen it over the time?
Well, Leslie, that's an awesome question. That's one of the coolest developments that we get to watch on a daily basis out here is how they're protecting all this infrastructure that they've taken so much time building. Obviously, between all the different static fires, there have been more successful and less successful protection methods that SpaceX has employed, and it seems to be the current theory is to add a bunch of really thick steel in front of the legs and all of the plumbing that's going up to the orbital launch mount. And so we've seen them install that over the past month and a half, or I guess maybe 2 months at this point. And so they've been adding all that steel. That should just add enough mass in front of the delicate pieces to keep things away from flamies.
I like that. Keep it away from flamies. We've had a few questions here about this. Saw one from Starship earlier asking, what will SpaceX do if the booster and the ship splash down successfully? We're all assuming that it ends up being the splashdown in the ocean near Hawaii, which is, again, what we've seen last as the plan, but can very much change. What do we think is the plan to recover these things and do with them? Adrian?
I mean, I think the most likely answer is to sink them, like a lot of rockets did before them. But it's just, it would be a huge operation to recover these from like swimming in the ocean. So I think, yeah, the most likely answer is, yeah.
Good. No, I say leave it to Jeff Bezos to fish them out of the ocean and resell the Raptor 2s as BE-4 engines.
God.
BE-4 what? By the way, anyone who doesn't get that reference, he was the one who went down and recovered some of the F-1 engines from some of the early Apollo missions from the bottom of the ocean. So, for those who are unaware of that reference. And I just want to say that Marco asked, launch mount gone through leg day?
Yep. And the chopsticks have done arm day too, so we're good with upper and lower body.
Oh, there you go. So now we know the answer to that is we will likely expect them to sink and break up. And Alex saying that there was some official paperwork that was released that at one point said that SpaceX expects the vehicles to break up and sink after splashdown. which sounds like it's a bad thing with all the junk and stuff down there. I do just want to point out that a lot of these boosters and stages and things that end up in the bottom of the ocean are not always trash. Over time, they end up becoming artificial reefs, and a lot of the undersea life ends up making their homes inside of these. So, yeah, as much as I would also love to make my home inside of a Falcon first stage, although those hopefully don't end up at the end of the bottom of the ocean. So as much as I'd love to make myself a home then inside of a Starship booster, we'll leave that for the fishes.
I would live in a super heavy.
I think I would too.
I would live under many things under the sea, such as pineapples or super heavies.
Oh my god.
Ian just shows up.
Just out of nowhere.
Ian the pineapple. Yes, very, very clever.
Thank you,
But,
thank you, thank you.
But I mean, technically, I don't know what the total volume is, but height-wise, you've got 69 meters if you lay it on its side of room to run around in. So it's probably even a little comfier than the ISS at that point.
So here's a kind of slightly larger question that we can expound upon for a second. Skylab, right? That was what, 22 feet in diameter. Starship, at least some of the sections, the crew habitable sections of Starship, are going to be 33 feet in diameter. And what would happen if you got stuck in the middle of the space, like the void inside the ship, and you didn't have anything to grab onto? Like the ISS, it's pretty small. You can use your arms to reach just about one of the walls wherever you are, and kind of move around. But what would happen if you got stuck out there? Well, they need like an emergency maneuvering system for your belt.
Like a leaf blower.
Yeah, like a leaf blower.
Fire extinguisher, yeah.
I think it will be designed in a way that you can always grab something. I do not think it will have like a huge free room that easily, because you could get problems there. So I think it will be designed first in a way that you can always grab like a handle or something. So that's my expectation.
Yeah, actually, we have the first U.S. spacewalk to thank for that. When Ed White went out, he had his little gun that he fired around to kind of maneuver outside of the Gemini capsule, but he realized there wasn't really an easy way to get back in. So they eventually decided to go with, you know what? Let's start putting grapple points where you can actually hold on to. And I know Buzz Aldrin also did a lot of that with some of the testing when they started using the neutral buoyancy lab and swimming pools basically to test that. So we can go all the way back to the Gemini program to thank for handles, basically. This is also probably a question for you, Nick, since you've been around there all bunch. Obelisk asking, did they remove the extendable alignment pins from the OLP? Saw them when they lifted booster from the transport stand, but couldn't see them when it was placed there.
Yes, as far as we can tell, they have removed those. Stop me if I'm incorrect here, but I believe they have been removed.
Haven't stopped you yet.
Okay, well, that's about all I know. I don't see them anymore. I'm looking. I don't see them. They're gone.
Alex
Actually,
says the pins are still on the OLM, and they were used today for B7 lifting operations.
Okay, see? Alex should have stopped me faster.
Oh no, Alexa.
It must be on the backside. Did I just trigger your Alexa? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it was me apparently, but I don't know how I did it.
Because you said Alex, probably.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why I have a Google household.
Because we have a commentator named Alex? That's oddly specific.
That's the only reason why I got all Google products in my house for voice control. Absolutely. Here's a good question, something we've kind of talked about before. We saw, like, even when they were rolling out the booster, there was some pressurization to it yesterday. Simon asking, does the ship need to be pressurized for stacking?
Yes, the ship and booster are typically always pressurized, a little bit above ambient pressure. Not like crazy flight pressures or anything, but similar to a soda can being a lot more stout when there's pressure inside of it. You want to have at least some pressure differential to leave a little bit more stability on the ship and the booster. I don't really know exactly how much pressure each one of those is currently undergoing, but I'd imagine an atmosphere or two at the very least, if not maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's always good to have that extra stability as well as you're lifting the vehicle too. A question from Ian about the landing that we were just talking about. Would they use the flight termination system before hitting the water to destroy the booster and ship to help them break up? And second question, does this one have a flight termination system as the follow-up there?
Yes, they definitely have flight termination systems. Any rocket that is taken off from the U.S. needs to have a flight termination system installed and working. And so, yeah, the Starship S-24 already has a FTS installed, and it's not active or anything, but it is installed and ready to go for whenever they are ready to go.
Yeah, you would need like a way to terminate this rocket because you don't want to just have it fly into the general direction of South Padre Island. Be like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think the people of South Padre or Texas in that area would be super happy with that.
Nah,
Just
I wouldn't
one
want my house squished.
Yeah,
You
it's like
wouldn't?
Would not.
I like Starship, but I do not like if it's flying in my general direction.
Unless I'm on it, in which case, fly away.
Yeah, that's fine.
True. Although the only time you do want to kind of flying in your direction also is a return to launch site type landing where it looks like it's about to come down and hit you and then doesn't. Which,
True.
reminder, we will have that coming up tonight, I believe, with the OneWeb 16 launch out of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and again later this week with Falcon Heavy over in Florida. Sorry to derail from Texas for a second, but got to plug our Florida launches coming up there as well.
So I looked at the quick A/B test from 14 minutes ago, and the chopsticks moved, but it looks like they moved a bit out. It looks like they're now a bit more out than they were before. I don't know if that is because they are carrying like some sort of load, and they just pushed a bit out. But there was movement in the last 15 minutes of the chopsticks. So we will see if that means they're starting to get into operations here very soon. Because we know based on the BA they want to do this soon. But yeah, just want to relay that there was some movement.
Yes, we are keeping an eye on it. And again, a reminder at this moment, we are waiting for the lift of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7 as we get closer and closer to an eventual orbital flight test here in Starbase, Texas. We're hitting some of your questions, which you can tag us at NASASpaceflight to ask those. Before we do that, I do just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Phil Parker for becoming a Red Team member. And Kevin, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Now, as a reminder, anyone who joins as Capcom and above also gets access to our NASA Spaceflight Discord, where there's all a bunch of awesome channels to talk about spaceflight, other topics, and you can also talk with us as well about space stuff. We also have a super chat question here from Christopher Peterson asking, has anyone flown a rocket with thermal protection system tiles and a fish scale / overlapped configuration instead of a tessellated or flat configuration to reduce mechanical coupling? And I will make sure that gets on the screen so you guys can read that as well. I don't think there has been one, but
well, I don't specifically know of any, but I can say pretty definitively that aerospace is always about optimization, and one of the biggest optimizations is always weight. And because of that, you want to make everything as light as possible. And most heat shield designs, even the heat shields that SpaceX uses, are very light, like not really foam, but I don't know what they are, like ceramic something or other. Anyway, whatever. They're very light and fragile, as we see them crack all the time. And so if you had them overlapping in like a fish scale pattern, you'd need to make sure each one of those tiles was more durable to be able to basically touch each other. Because right now, basically none of the tiles touch each other right now. There's a small gap between each tile, and that gap is obviously the correct size, and it's not going to cause a problem thermally, but there's a gap, which means no tiles touch. If you have overlapping tiles, the tiles would need to be strengthened in some way that would likely add more mass to your total vehicle, when you could just spend time to not hold on. Sorry, someone else go.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, Just to relay from that, like every kilogram you spend on the second stage not being like on the second hardware is kilograms you cannot spend on your payload. So
True.
that's like just an equation you want to just save. So yeah, make it as light as possible. Hope it works. And I cannot provide anything about the history aspect of this question because I'm kind of very terrible sometimes with history questions. That's
And
more
also-
like other specifics here.
And I mean, yeah, also, most of the time, it just makes sense to have them interlock with each other, makes it easier for replacements if you need to swap out a damaged tile. It also, again, you get the stability, so if one tile is overlapped with another, and one falls off, there's a chance it could take another tile with it, and so on. So a lot of it is just the safety of the vehicle itself, basically. It appears that we're getting a little bit of indication that there is possibly pressurization going on Ship 24. So it looks like we're getting closer to a lift. As again, appears the exterior body that we can see from our cameras looks to show the vehicle skin kind of getting pressurized here.
Let's see.
So keep a close eye on it and keep an eye on the screen. We should see that hopefully become more obvious. And again, the big thing that we are looking for still is for the pins to go in on the left side of your screen there ahead of the lift. Speaking of, while we're talking about the pins, we have a question here again from Leslie with another great question asking, how on earth can 2 pins on each side of Starship hold the weight of the entire thing?
Engineering.
Remember
how.
that this thing is empty. Like, it's yes, it is massive, but it's completely empty. It's like there's a 3mm and 4mm layer of steel, and after that, it's just an empty tank. So it wouldn't be able to do that with like a full Starship. But this is just an empty tin can. So that's why it's able to do that. That's the answer.
I would start singing Here Am I Floating in a Tin Can, but that would be 3rd copyright strike, and I'm not risking it.
Hey, you remember, 3rd strike and you're out.
Uh-oh.
Well, it was nice to know whatever. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, that is a really good question. And again, that's the thing to keep in mind with these, is when they are not fueled, the materials and the techniques that SpaceX has used to build these are, in terms of at least rockets and vehicles, these are very light. Right, Adrian?
Yeah, it's a very light dry mass. It's the goal to make them light. It's the goal to make the hardware as light as possible while still having the durability you need. So yeah, it's kind of by design. Of course, we are talking light in terms of how light for this kind of structure, but it's still light. And in the end, chopsticks are kind of like a crane. So they are able to lift these, and they've proven that they can do this, and they tested it before with these wonderful water balloons as well.
Oh yes, the old the mass simulant that they used for testing early on.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a mean water balloon fight with those. Just saying.
Unsurvivable, some might say.
Minor detail. That's not significant, right?
Nah.
I love to get hit by like 50 tons of water.
Wow, you have very strange desires there.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine 50 tons of water like visually. That's the problem that you have with a lot of these rocket things, especially if you're a pesky European like me that has never seen a rocket in his life. It's like imagine scales is weird.
That is true. It is. If you've never seen a rocket up close of any kind, it does actually end up making it interesting to figure out the scale of things and how big this stuff really is. So, I mean, we're talking about just that, again, Booster 7 is, I believe, 69 meters tall.
Nice.
Right? I mean, from your perspective, what does it actually look like there?
To be honest, I'm slightly desensitized to it, and I know I've talked with some people about this. Going going out here every day, seeing this every single day, it's like, yeah, that's Starship, yeah, that's Booster, yeah, whatever. Like you just kind of get used to it. But anytime I leave and like say go to the Cape and see, like a Falcon 9 or SLS or any one of these other rockets, which are huge in their own regard, and then I come back here and I like look up and I keep looking up and I'm like, whoa, this thing doesn't taper. The Starship keeps going in the Rocket Garden. What? Yeah, it blows my mind on occasion. It is huge, like building size huge. Even just the Starships, which are only 50 meters tall, 50 meters by 9 meters in diameter, they're just chilling in the Rocket Garden, and you can walk pretty close to it. Actually, one of my really good friends down here, Cooper, had put together a little video showing him running from like right up next to the camera all the way down to right where you can get at the Rocket Garden, and he just disappears into like little pixels. And it's the sense of scale is just crazy. You stand at the bottom of one of those and you just keep looking up and you keep looking up, and it's like, is this gonna stop? Sometimes when I do the pans for the daily videos, like panning up the rocket, I get halfway through what I think is the pan. I look up and it's like, oh, I'm not even halfway to the middle. I'm not even to the middle of the booster yet. Like, there's a lot of booster here. So it's big. It's big. That's the answer. It's big.
And we do want to come in here with a breaking update. We now have a new temporary intermittent road closure for tomorrow, January 10th. So I believe that could be the potential of a rollback for Booster 9, maybe? But that is now in play for tomorrow. It looks like from 2 to 5 p.m. Central Time, depending on wind conditions.
And it explicitly says transporting operations. So this will be probably, I would guess this is B9 going back.
But today's closure is still scheduled, correct?
There is no closure anymore. The closure was finished after I think the Booster 7 operations.
Nope.
And since then on
the website. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
On the website, it appears as closure concluded, beach open since about 4 hours.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
well,
they
cool.
did not properly communicate this whole thing.
Keeping an eye on our stabilizer pins, I believe.
They're getting in.
Yep, there we go.
Nice.
So that means that we are getting into lifting operations here. So you can see that again, the pins and the stabilizers are really good in that zoom in on the left side of your screen there right now. So
they're not fully in yet and fully deployed, but they're moving in. So this is we are now in the step where they stabilize the ship before going up.
Exactly. So, as we mentioned, these are the stabilizers. Well, stabilize it ahead of the lift. Is there anything else that is done once those stabilizers go in before the lift? Nick, do you know what? Or Adrian, go ahead.
You will see the chopstick bending a bit because they will start to carry the load more, and basically you will see the chopsticks kind of like bending a bit down while they are still. They're pulling them up, but it's not enough to lift the ship yet. So, this is then the last step.
Yes. So will be the next step ahead of the lift itself. We'll go up, swing around, and lower it down on top of Booster 7, which you see right there. So we are getting much closer now to the actual lift itself. And I see everyone in chat there now going, lift, lift,
Ooh.
lift. How about for right now, since the pins are going in, let's go pins, pins, pins. Which you should be seeing. Oh, go ahead.
The pins are now deployed as well. So they're not deploying. They're getting it now to the socket. And once they're in, this thing is ready to lift.
There we go. And so a reminder, where exactly people are looking at for this on your, let's say, the left side of the screen there.
You can see, it's hard to see sometimes. You can see the arm moving in, and then you can see some movement there, how it approaches like the ship. And the majority is now hidden kind of by the stabilizer, because the stabilizer is in front of it. But yeah, it looks like they're close to be completely done. And once that is the case, this thing can lift.
Right. And I do just want to point out that some people are also chanting Nick, Nick, Nick. So shout out to you, Nick.
Well, thank you. Jack. He's out here too, getting mosquitoes just like me.
Yeah, every time I hear stories of you all being like in the field in Florida and in Boca, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm always doing this from home. No mosquitoes in my room.
There are fewer mosquitoes, but also you have fewer rockets in your room, so
Yeah, it's a
I feel
trade-off.
like it's a wash.
Yeah, it's like a trade. It's like a trade chart. Like amount of rockets, amount of mosquitoes, and it goes up.
For one rocket, you need to have 2 million mosquitoes.
Yeah.
At least, especially out for the Florida night launches when you're right on the water there. Oh, those are the number of times I've come back where it looks like I have chicken pox, but it's all just mosquito bites. But there were rockets, so that's something, I guess.
Patrick in the back channel makes a good point. Do I actually want to have rockets in my room, though?
Oh, you guys have seen pictures of my house, right? I got rockets all over the place.
Well, yes.
You got a 9-foot tall rocket hanging from the ceiling. Love rockets. More rockets, more better.
I'm 3D printing a Delta for Heavy right now. I'm coloring it in my hobby room, so I'm close to have like a Delta for Heavy in my room.
A reminder, if you want rockets in your room, you can have something similar, at least with some of our metal prints with pictures of those rockets as well. So don't forget those as well at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Shameless plug.
Chris Bergen makes happy noises.
That was the noise I just heard. Okay. While we're doing the pins here, this is a really good question from John Ferris saying, if it's taking this long to get the pins into place, how will that work when trying to catch a Starship? Do we know the answer to that yet, or any speculation as to how that might work, Adrian?
They kind of would just land on the chopsticks and the stabilizers pin would not be in instantly. So this is more like, hey, we can do this now, just make sure it works. But on a launch situation, it would land like on the chopsticks. That's like, there's another pin up. This is not the only pins we are seeing. We are seeing right here. Like there's another connection point at the top where they're also attached. So they would primarily attach at the top.
So to use your cola can analogy before, it's like if you were to hold the can in the palms of your hand, but then actually wrap your fingers around it after to grip it better.
Yeah, kind of like this is the second grip.
There you go.
But Starship catching, I feel like still has some question to be answered. And I'm looking forward to see all of these answers over the years. But there's definitely some interesting question about how they want to do this and how they want to deploy all of this and make sure it's stable.
I have to give a shout out to Alex. Oh boy, I'm rubbing off on everyone with the puns here the longer I'm on stream. He said catching Starship is still a bit up in the air. But tish.
Aww.
Hey, see, chat, that wasn't me this time. I'm just relaying it, chat. This one wasn't me, as much as I kind of wish it was, because I think that was actually really good, Alex. Good job.
So now we are waiting for the chopsticks to rise.
Correct. So the next thing will be the lift at this point with everything in. As you mentioned, we might see the chopstick arms bend a little bit, and then we will see the lift itself, which, for perspective, about how long, Nick, does it take from once it starts lifting to get all the way up on, raise that 69 plus meters and then get back on top of Ship 7, or Booster 7, excuse me?
Yeah, it's changed every single time they've done it. They have started off very slowly, and every time they've done it since, it's been getting faster. I believe we're down to about 20 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, like it takes the last before contact takes a bit longer, but like the majority of the lift will be done quite fast. Usually they go very slow once they are like close to the docking. Because that's why you want to be really careful. But once this starts moving, you will be able to see how it moves. It will be fast.
Absolutely. At that point, also, once it gets closer to the connection point, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as it gets to it, is a lot of times we see SpaceX take their drone out as well and start flying it around to just double check alignment and that everything looks good.
Also to make cool cinematic shots for the YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, the ones that they take and then all of a sudden release about 8 months later, and it's like, oh, that's what they were doing with the drone. Or when they release a still and then all of a sudden do a video and it's like, oh, wait, no, that wasn't a still. That was a whole drone shot that they took a still from.
Yeah, suddenly.
But yes, again, we are waiting for that lift there right now. And while we're waiting, let's hit a few quick super chats here. Jack Carpenter sending in money for the Sentient Robot Army Sacrifice and Appeasement Fund. Thank you very much for the Sarasa donation, I guess is what that would end up being. Or sorry, the super chat towards that fund. And then hit Novak with a question here as well, asking, won't the Starship have to be stacked with the payload already inside? So would that be the 85-ton Starship plus, say, up to 150-ton payload? So how would payload loading work, and would lifting be able to handle that then? I don't know if we know the answer to that exactly yet, do we, Adrian?
No, but I'm pretty sure they have to be able to load this with payload. This, I do not think, especially down the line, that some providers would be happy to hear the story. Yeah, we're gonna take your multi-billion-dollar payload on a lift and carry it like 70 meters high and then integrate it. Yeah, that wouldn't be a happy news for some of the satellite providers.
True.
So I think down the line they have to, if it's not able right now.
And again, as of right now, the deployers, the PEZ dispensers as they're called, are, for the most part, and all the boosters that we've seen tested right now at least, welded shut. So eventually, I'm sure there will be a way to access those PEZ dispensers once we get closer, correct? Hopefully.
Hopefully. That's a... I'm really curious about all of the deployment mechanisms for Starship, because so far it looks like they have like very specific Starship for very specific use cases. Like we have the Starlink one, we have probably like one for payloads, we have tankers, and it will be interesting to see how these evolve and to see more of these. I'm really curious still about the main payload one, like the I can launch a 50-ton satellite kind of thing. That's gonna be my interesting to watch. I'm really looking forward to see that design of the whatever it will, like a jumper or something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen, as Patrick's pointing out, the renderings of the big payload door as well. So, Adrian, I'm sure you're right on the different perspectives.
I mean, we saw a physical one. The question is that still the case?
Oh, at Boca, yeah.
Yeah. The question is that still the design, right?
Hold on, we got a new vent going on. What is this?
Oh.
Look at the base of the Starship. Let's see if it's on the feed here.
Yeah, so you can see it in the right video feed there. You can see some of the venting.
Yeah. Strange.
That looks like the lines that go to the orbital launch mount.
Interesting.
Might be pressurization of the booster.
I was just about to ask that. Again, that extra rigidity, which will help just with basically make it a little sturdier as they go for the lift of the ship onto the booster there.
Bunker venting. Okay.
And again, they're probably not moving into, like I see it in chat again, they will probably not move into wet rest rehearsal operation right now because it's nowhere near to clear. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but there are people like at the beach, right?
Yes, I am very close and legally so, but yeah, very close. Hopefully it doesn't fall. If it falls, you will hear a loud sound.
And you be running.
No, they won't. The loud sound will not be the Starship. The loud sound will be me screaming as I'm running away.
Well, the good news is we've only seen one serious issue, knock on wood, with the chopsticks, and there was not anything connected to it at the time.
Yeah. We better find some serious wood to knock on, because last thing we need to do is jinx something.
Yeah, all I can think of is in sports when you've got the announcer's jinx. So let's hope that we didn't do an announcer jinx on that. The only thing that may fall, that hopefully would fall, if anything, would be a tile, like one tile, and we'll be fine.
I'm still voting for nothing.
I agree with that. Here's an interesting question. And I'm not sure which of you would be best to answer this. In terms of the engines, so Alpha Gusta asking, hypothetically, would it be possible to add even more engines onto the Super Heavy booster, or is that thrust section pretty much at max capacity until a theoretical Raptor 3?
Well,
As
they
I just want
can't.
to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt real
Go
quick.
ahead.
The stabilizers
Yeah.
are fully in.
Nice.
Now, Nick, sorry, go ahead back to
Yeah, you're good.
answer.
Yeah. So to answer that question, there are 33 engines right now underneath the Booster 7, and currently we have only seen plans for up to 33 engines, like firm. A long time ago, they were talking like I think up to 38 engines at the bottom there, if I'm not mistaken. There may or may not be room physically for them. I mean, they can change the size of the bell or whatever with Raptor 3s. You know, maybe they make the thrust puck a little wider than the most of the booster and kind of like pancakes out a little bit. You know, they could fit more in if they need to, but I don't know if they will need to because at this point the design is fairly well solidified for the 9-meter variant at least. Maybe if they ever get to the 18-meter variant, they'll change something more significant there. But at least for the next decade or so, I would imagine 33 will probably be where they stick, pending obviously orbital test, because SpaceX does not really believe in the sunk cost fallacy. So if they go through the orbital test and find out that a different number of engines is most appropriate, then yeah, they'll change that pretty quick.
And the other thing that's important to note too is that at this point, I feel like with the Raptor 2s, they're optimized so well that you probably don't need more than 33 engines anyway, with the amount of thrust and performance that you're going to get from these.
Yeah, because really at the end of the day, the engines, the number of engines is the number of engines on the bottom of the booster is really just affecting how much payload you can get to orbit, right? So if for some reason they're not able to hit 100 tons of useful payload to orbit one day, and they're only able to get to say 80 tons, that's where they have to start talking about needing more thrust. Now, I will just say here, breaking news: it sounds like the orbital tank farm has quieted down, like significantly. Everyone's kind of looking at each other right now, like what's going on. It is very quiet over there at the orbital tank farm. That's cool.
Yeah, that's it's full of cryogenics, so it's kind of cool.
Oh,
What is
wow.
wrong? Adrian, you're taking the majority of the jokes here.
I mean, that's kind of my thing sometimes. I feel like Jack right now probably listening to us is like very angry or happy.
Oh, that's the pun
Oh,
off
he's
here.
happy.
Yeah, you and I at
He's
some
happy.
point will need a pun off when we have another long delay between lifts. Although at that point I feel like we would lose way too many viewers.
You're writing angry noises in the back channel.
I mean, I could mention something about the Southern Launch, Polar Launch Corridor and really get angry noises out of him, but I do choose to not choose violence today.
Wise man.
And he's out. Oh boy. All right. Let me get things back on track here. Otherwise, my brain will just be thinking about 20,000 puns to try and rattle off here. Again, we are, as you pointed out, the tank farm is getting quiet, which, just out of curiosity, what is the significance then of the tank farm getting quiet? As you mentioned, it is typically the cryogenics or the super cooled aspects of the rocket, but what is the significance of that going quiet?
Yeah, I don't really know of a significance of it going quiet with a full stack. Obviously, if they're doing some kind of a load test or whatever, we would correlate that with propellant being loaded or unloaded or not being cooled or whatever. But it was just weird. All day it's been very loud, and it just all of a sudden got quiet right after the pins got installed. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what the significance is, but it is a data point for someone's spreadsheet. Now, who keeps spreadsheets on Starship? I don't know, because you'd have to be a crazy person to do that.
I don't know who would do that.
So weird, like having spreadsheets on a rocket.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, that's why they don't paint them. They paint them or keep them silver. They don't paint them with spreadsheets, but spreadsheets on the rocket.
It's getting SpaceX really needs to lift this.
It's
Yeah,
important.
can you tell we've been on here for a while waiting for the lift? But in all seriousness, so in terms of the pressurization, we talked about how they do get that extra support with pressurizing the vehicles ahead of the lift here. What is inside to pressurize it?
I believe it's inert air, just normal normal air, like good old hydrogen and oxygen and whatever other trace. It's just normal air.
So like nitrogen and oxygen and hydrogen?
Nitrogen. Yeah. Normal air. I don't think it's anything special.
It's not like a special, like for certain tanks, you normally have to purge it with nitrogen and things like that. So this one,
I bet you they do get purged before they get used, just to clear out any of the normal atmosphere. But if you look during any rollout, actually, there's a big foggy vent coming out. That's fun. It's just pretty. Whenever you see a rollout, there are like trucks that kind of tag right behind the booster that have this equipment on the back that looks like it's some kind of compressor that I believe helps keep the tank, the Starship or the booster, whatever they're rolling, pressurized to the correct pressure. And so they don't have like a big tanker truck behind it. They just have this little pickup truck with like a small trailer with some like pressurization equipment. So they probably just use the ambient air there.
that's good to know. Something you don't think of is what they actually pressurize it with, because we talk all this time about, it's pressurized, but with what?
That's a good question.
While we're waiting for this lift here, do you want to thank a few more people with the super chats? Thomas with the super chat here saying, I think they should do a soft catch where they launch the rocket a couple kilometers up and bring it back down and try to catch it first. Kind of like a little bit of a mini Starhopper as we near the anniversary of that kind of test almost. I guess that may have to do that at some point, right, Adrian?
So basically, do like a kind of catch test.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing: you risk your you would probably risk your equipment still to a significant point. And also, the most important thing SpaceX has on their agenda right now is get this thing flying, because they need to fly this rocket for Starlink. Elon has pointed out over and over again how important it is for the company to get this thing flying. So right now, it's not really the focus on recovery. It's on launching. It's on getting to the orbital launch and getting there fast. So, yeah, I don't think it's a priority right now for them to recover.
When you think about it, even with Falcon 9, the goal was to recover Falcon 9, but the early flights didn't have any landing legs or anything. The goal was perfecting the launch, landing, and then the turnaround cycle between them. So once they got good at that, then they could focus on, all right, now let's work on the recovery aspect and then the reuse aspect.
And it's moving. It's moving, guys.
We have movement.
It's going up.
All right. There we go. We have first motion at 3:12 p.m. Central Time.
Here we go.
So at this point now, we are going to keep track of it as it lifts on the way up.
You can see it on a right camera very well. There's a gap between the Starship and the SPMT.
There you go. Yeah, if you look especially at the bottom by the legs, you can see it.
Yeah.
By the legs of the orbital launch mount.
It's flying. Look at that.
It's a Mechazilla assisted takeoff.
Is that what they call them these days?
Yeah, it's a MAT.
A MAT.
Mechazilla assisted takeoff.
Yes. That's canon. It's a professional term.
Yes. I do just want to point out, while this is lifting, there is another thing that will be lifting off shortly over in the UK. We are aware of the Virgin Orbit launch and all of that going on there, but typically we only cover events where we have the cameras there, so we will of course be closely watching the Virgin Orbit feed as well. And again, the fact that it is basically an airdrop, it's not a vertical it's a horizontal launch as opposed to a vertical launch. So for all of you in chat, we are definitely aware of it, but right now our eyes are on the currently off the ground Ship 24 as it goes on to Booster 7. And of course, we will have an article as well on NASASpaceflight.com as the mission completes as well, and to update the status, and also on there now if you want to learn more about it. Or it will be on there, excuse me. All right, so now we have the lift process going on. So a reminder for those that are just joining us, Nick, what is the lift process like? So what are we going to see as
Yeah.
it keeps moving up?
That's a wonderful question. The process here, now that we have it airborne, is really we're next waiting
Oh,
for
wow.
them to move it quickly. What?
I just saw this camera. That's close.
Oh, okay. I thought I was missing something.
No, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll expect them to start lifting it rapidly, fairly soon. It is airborne right now. Likely what they're doing is they're testing out, making sure the load is balanced properly, and that everything is within the parameters that they expected. And then they'll start moving it fast. And at that point, when they're moving it quickly, we'll notice it and it'll go all the way up to the top. And then they'll pitch it over once it reaches to the top, over the booster, nice and slowly, so they make sure they don't bump anything or do any boops unexpectedly. And then it'll be full stacked.
Right, so once it gets to the top, it will have to do a full swing around as well. So keeping in mind that the chopsticks not only go up and down, but they do also have the lateral movement too.
Yes, they do.
So all that to keep in mind as we watch it, especially as it's just floating mid-air and we start to see it go higher and then eventually swing over and lower on top of Booster 7. So as we keep an eye on it lifting, we can take some more questions. And Nick, this one's perfect for you since you're out there at the moment. Can you actually hear anything from the lift? Westy asking, how loud is it from where you are?
That's a good question. It's pretty quiet. As I said, the orbital tank farm did spool down. That was creating quite a bit of a background, like venting, hissing noises, and that's all gone now. Really, the biggest thing you hear right now is all of the people talking. There's a bunch of people out here in the dunes kind of celebrating this with us, and they're all cheering and excited and kind of standing in awe of this massive vehicle suspended in the air right now. And yeah, you hear the ocean sounds, and it's quite tranquil, very tranquil.
So how many people are approximately out there with you right now? Because you're in a public viewing area, right?
Yeah, I'm just standing on right off the side of the highway on the highway easement, and they didn't close this section of Highway 4. And I'd say there's a good 4 dozen people kind of just around the dunes here. There's the regular photographers around here that y'all know and love, and then there's also a bunch of beachgoers who are just having a fun time on the beach and then turned around to see something happening. Oh, it looks like it's raised up quite a bit.
Yeah,
it
it's
moving?
going
Definitely
up.
more movement. Yeah, and a reminder
So-
right there, we have you out there, Nick, as well as Jack out there as well. As this is, as this
Jack
is being...
Jack is getting this shot. I see where he's standing, where I'm standing. He's definitely going to have the better shot. It is perfect lighting where he's standing.
So Jack is helping us as they jack up the vehicle. Is that what we're saying?
Oh my
Oh, no,
gosh!
no.
Wow! Wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
That was a
That's-
stretch. I'm
that's-
sorry.
That was a stretch of cosmic proportions.
I'm expecting more angry noises from Jack later.
Oh yes.
And a
You
reminder,
get-
I did see this question though. The road is currently open, correct?
It's quasi-open. I'd call this a soft closure or a partial closure. They basically
Going up.
have Yep, it's definitely moving. They
Oh,
have
it's
a good
fast.
part of the pad. Yeah, look at that thing move.
Yeah, we got a lot of movement now.
Oh god, this is I love once they fully hit like the speed pedal, because you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see how fast it moves.
And again, that
Normally,
is
when
the...
you're looking at, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nick.
Normally, when you're looking at the chopsticks moving in person, it's kind of hard to see. We time lapse them a lot on the daily videos, so you can see the motion a little more apparently. But it's really hard to notice. But this time, it's definitely noticeable that it's moving, and that is so cool.
Do you think then it's getting faster over and over again now, as they do this more?
I think we've heard working on automating the chopstick lift, and I imagine it's getting more and more automated each time they do this.
I'm sure, because I mean, this thing has some speed, and Adrian, I believe this is the 3rd time that they've stacked this particular set, right?
Yeah, that should be correct. Yes. So they got some practice now with this particular set. and they really used basically every single test they could do with these two vehicles now. It's quite crazy how much they did.
Right. And did they use the chopsticks at any point for the testing when they were lifting ship 20?
I do believe so. Yes, they did lift Ship 20 a couple of times with the chopsticks. The first time was right before the presentation that Elon did, and the second time was a couple months later in March, and that was the Ship 20 chopstick usage.
Guess we'll see some Raptors soon here.
So then this would be the Alex confirming that Ship 20 was stacked twice. So this is the fifth time that they are now using these chopsticks to stack one of these ships onto a booster. So obviously over time they're improving, and I feel like they're able to go faster and faster, but also just props to the design of how quickly these things move. And I think that'll also be significant as we get towards eventual catching of boosters when they return, too. The ability to have that quick speed to move into position. And right now getting
It looks so
fantastic view.
bonkers. Like, it looks ridiculous to see this giant ship being lifted by two arms.
It's
Crazy.
just floating there. Well, not floating, but it looks like it's floating there. And there we go. You can see its height compared to the orbital launch mount, which, about how high up is the orbital launch mount? Do you know?
I'm gonna go AFK.
Okay.
I actually don't have the exact measures in my head right now, how high it is, but it's moving quite fast. I think each of these rings there on the left is about 2 meters. So
Wow.
it's quite fast going up.
Yes. So
OLM
it's
is about 18 meters tall. I was guessing 20.
Thank you. So in this time, it's already moved 18 meters now, and now it has, I believe, again, the Starship or the booster itself is 69 meters, and so we've got the almost 70 meters there. So it's moving surprisingly quick, just for
we go
reference of
Raptors.
speed.
There's the vacuum raptors.
Wow.
Oh, look at those beautiful! Great zoom on. You can see on the left side the ones that will hopefully power Starship in orbit.
Yep.
Or to orbit to finish it off there.
Yeah, it's going quite speedy. It's already like one third up.
Now the controls for
Crazy.
this is all done hydraulics, correct?
It's actually cables.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know exactly how the cables terminate, but the chopsticks are riding on a cable. So it's basically a long spool of cable with a bunch of pulleys that are lifting everything.
Oh, okay.
The ship is getting close to overtake the booster.
Yes, and keep in mind we also have Booster 9 nearby as well that's being tested. So if you see two boosters, you've got Booster 7, which is the one that's being stacked on top of, and then Booster 9 off to the side, which, based off of intermittent road closure notices, likely will be on its way rolling back very soon to let Booster 7 and Ship 24 be the stars
Have
of
a
the show.
moment together. Yes, they needed their moment together.
Oh, yes.
And did quite a lot of moments together now with the third time.
This is true.
Let's see. So while this is going here, while we were just looking before at the bottom of Ship 24, Tim is asking, is the Ship 24 lower engine shrouding all in place? Is that something that we can see or that we know of yet up to this point?
I don't know if we know on the ship. I'm pretty sure the booster, we saw that rolling by, and that did look like it had more shrouding than it did earlier in its test campaign. But I don't know about the ship.
Yeah, it was pretty visible yesterday as we were watching the combined NSF Live Booster 7 rollout stream there. It was, there was definitely more shrouding around the base of that, so we'll have to keep an eye out as well on SN24 as it rises up.
This might be actually the stream to see a bit more of that, because we know
Yeah.
that they did some work below Ship 24. So we'll see what it
I'll
changes.
try to
And
get a
I
close
love
view here.
I love the numbers on the ships. I think they should be bigger, but I love the numbers.
Absolutely. And Ship 24 for quite a while, if you watched our dailies, which you can see when you subscribe here, that come out not necessarily daily, but a bunch of times a
The
week.
Boca update videos.
Yeah, exactly. The Boca update videos. For a while there, Ship 20, I believe it was Ship 24 that had a whole bunch of work being done on it. You could barely see it. It was covered by all the scaffolding, and now we see it about halfway up the booster in terms of height, it looks like.
It's getting there. Quite fast.
So while it's going, what was some of that work that was being done on Ship 24 that at least we could see with our cameras that we know of?
We know that they built like an area around the thrust section where it looked almost like a insulation room where they could work maybe a bit more enclosed. So we don't know what exactly they did to the thrust section. Where we could see major work to the thrust section. My God, there was also work to the thermal protection system, to GPS tiles.
It is squeaking. Chopsticks are squeaking. It is squeaky.
Oh, then they need some oil.
They do need some oil. We need a Starbase oil fund.
WD-40.
Yeah,
WD-40.
Would this be WD-24 then, because of the ship?
Oh, I like that.
Thank you.
The good old rule. The WD-40 and the flex tape rule. Okay, that joke wasn't good.
All right, at this point, Ship 24 has stopped moving, and there's a depress vent somewhere over there. I'd say this is an anomaly.
We hear the depressed.
Still going up, by the way.
The crane is moving as well.
Probably won't hear much of us with the vent. So we may have to
True.
reiterate.
It looks like the crane is moving as well.
Can the vent stop?
Which crane?
The big one, the LR 1100 or 11,000. It's rotating.
Oh, there you go. You can see it.
All right, the vent has died down a bit. It's a lot less violent, but they're still venting.
Yeah, hopefully you can still hear kind of what we're saying over the vent. So about that flex tape you were talking about.
Did you see what was venting, Nick?
I can't see. There's no visible venting. I'm looking right now, but I imagine it's the Starship because it has stopped moving. The Starship's no longer moving up. So I don't know what that is, but that's nothing we've seen before.
Yeah, we are unaware exactly what it is at this point, whether
It's
it's an
still
anomaly,
moving.
a planned stop,
It's
or
still
what.
it's still moving.
It's still moving? Yep. Yeah. Okay, cool.
All good.
Maybe there's just too much air in it. They needed to lighten it a little bit.
It just really hated my joke that much that it just vented frustration.
Wow. Wow.
But again, at this point, it is continuing to move. So, despite all of the noises there that we heard, everything appears to be continuing with this lift.
Yeah, looks okay so far.
It was just a very unexpectedly loud depress there.
You can see one of the pins
Yeah, I've
here.
never seen that before.
Oh, there we go. That's cool.
So what were you saying, Adrian, about what we can expect here?
You can see the pins actually on the top of the booster there, where they will attach the ship to. You can see them barely on top of the booster. So that's cool to see. The next thing that will happen is it will stop a bit above the booster, and then usually it holds there for a bit before then rotating over the booster. So that's the sequence of order we have in front of us.
Yep, we're continuing to keep an eye on that as it goes up. So far, it looks like it's still moving slowly but surely here. Well, I say slowly but surely. It's still pretty fast considering that you've got a giant Starship in your chopsticks there.
Oh,
there we go. And there's that view we were discussing earlier about the shrouding potentially on the underside of Ship 24.
It's normal to me, like what you saw before, how it looked.
Yeah, I mean, it looks about the same so far, but trying to see if there's any other major changes that we can see from underneath here. Again, sorry if we occasionally go silent. We're watching the same video you are and taking a look at the stunning views. And again, shout out right now to Patrick, who is flicking all the switches to decide what you see on your screen right now from our robot and Jack army out there. I believe they're all robotic cameras, and Jack has one camera feed too. So as you mentioned, at this point, it's going to continue to go upward, and we'll stop a little bit above the booster, and then we'll swing over to go on top of it, correct?
Yes, I think it will stop any second now.
All right, so we'll see that go up there, and we will see that. I guess the question is it rotate or translate over, depending on how you
Wait,
ask
are
it.
they already translating it? No, right? It's holding, right?
No, it looks
I'm
like
just
they've
seeing-
reached the height at which they're going to stop at this point.
They're
before
already
they...
translating
Oh no,
it.
they are. Yes.
Wow, this is fast.
Right. Typically, they would stop at that point, and then analyze, and if everything is good, which most of the time it was, they would then start the swing over on top of the booster, basically. But it is already rotating at this point.
Yes.
Which, while it's rotating, how much is the actual Ship 24 or the Starship's weigh dry mass? So right now, unloaded.
I'm not sure if we have like an exact update for Ship 24, but
in general, for the latest number that we know of for Starship.
I think the latest number wasn't that like 120 tons. If I'll look at the back channel because Alex, but I have the number of 120 tons in my mind as the latest dray mass for Starship. And I don't know what happened to my accent just in that sentence. It got funky and weird.
Hey, we understood what you were saying. That's the most important thing.
But yeah, wow, I'm just like kind of amazed by the fact that they just arrived at the top point and instantly started to rotate. That was kind of fast. It feels like they want to demonstrate how fast they can do this right now. Like they really like this right now. Oh, that's a cool shot.
There we go. You can see it. You can see the actual movement there, as it's really close above the grid fins there on top of Booster 7.
We should say that really close here still means several meters because Starship size.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's 9 meters in diameter, I believe.
Yes.
So yeah, it's still a pretty decent size. Look at that, especially with the gorgeous sky color there too.
Yeah, you can see it, how it slowly translates over the booster. So next thing will be to stop over the booster, then lower it down to the clamps, I shouldn't say clamps, like the attachment mechanism. And the next thing then will be the ship QD moving in and probably connecting to the ship.
Yep. And that was the points we were talking about earlier, where it's basically just a hook that kind of holds it into place, essentially.
Yes.
Once we get closer, we'll be able to show you more of the attachment points that it will sit right on top of. Because right now this view is fantastic. So as it gets closer to it, we'll switch it. So right now, Patrick, you're doing great. And there you go. You can also see it kind of there as well, where it's going to attach, and see that movement as it swings around.
Oh.
So what is the reaction while we're kind of watching it here? I mean, my reaction is I have to keep reminding myself to talk because I'm stopping and still amazed by how this always looks.
Yes.
What's the reaction out at the public viewing area over there?
It was really cool. As soon as first motion happened, a bunch of people started cheering, and being all excited. And after it stopped going all the way up and started pitching over, more cheers from the crowd. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I keep just being real quiet because I'm A, trying to get all these shots, but B, just kind of mesmerized by the fact this thing is just chilling up there. That's cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we are talking about like basically a small, not even a big building being lifted in kind of size. Just casually.
It's just a water tank. Don't worry, it's just water tanks. They're not gonna be doing anything flying with those. Just water tanks.
Okay, then we are fine. Stay hydrated, chat. Make sure to drink.
There
Speaking
you
of
go.
water tanks.
Oh gosh, don't remind water tanks. We've been on the air long enough.
Yeah, it's getting close here to aligning with the booster.
Beautiful shot there. Again, the close-up of it. Yes, it is swinging its way around. Again, I'm saying swinging it around so we don't deal with transition, translation, rotation. Because I'm sure I've already seen a million comments in chat about the proper terminology for that.
Yeah, we are sorry. Sometimes you confuse fancy names for things.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just the simplest terminology to convey it to the most people. Yeah, it's turning. As I've seen in chat, it's swiveling, it's turning, it's twisting. Bop it, twist it, pull it. And we are...
It also seems
Wow.
a bit lower, a bit like
Yeah, it's
than
like they're
usual
not
when they
leaving
do-
as much space. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like they're
Yeah.
up. Like it feels like they
Yeah.
just looked at where can they get this a bit closer.
Yeah, look at it from that angle. You can really get a good idea of the little gap there actually is as it's swinging over, moving over.
I mean that gap's like less than a meter, right?
I think so.
It's hard to tell from this angle, but it is maybe about a meter.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
They
I'd
are
say about a meter. That looks about right.
cool.
Plus or minus 2 centimeters, because I'm that accurate in guesstimation.
Yeah, it's about 1 meter and like 6 centimeters, give it or take, right?
Mhm. Give or take.
Somewhere around there. My brain is trying to convert it from, as one of my friends in New Zealand likes to call it, freedom units to the actual proper units the rest of the world uses.
Mm.
There's converter. I have a converter at this point bookmarked because of spaceflight. Here we go. Getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. Again, this has gotten so much faster, I believe. We're about 15 minutes or so from the time that we saw first movement till now. About 15, 20-ish minutes.
Yeah, this is definitely on record pace. It's like when you're doing a video game speedrun, you're on world record pace here.
How soon till we reach the Ender Dragon?
That depends on the luck we will have on the run.
Okay, it looks like
Glad
it's
you got
about
that.
done with its pitch maneuver.
Yep.
The question is, will they now wait or will they just instantly go again?
Right, we'll
Well,
see
we'll
again.
see.
Also, if they swing any of the drones around or any of the other things they might use to assist with alignment. But yeah, it is. Looks like, I believe first motion was around 3:03. So yeah, we're correction at about 30 minutes here now.
So this could now, I don't want to jinx it, but this could now take a few minutes because you want to make sure you're aligned before you put it down. You don't want to like crash your hooks by just putting a ship on it.
Right.
Or even
And-
worse, Raptors. Is the
and we
ship
have
2D moving in?
It looks like it's rotating.
Yes, it is. Yep, it's definitely moving.
Oh, there's a perfect view of it. You can definitely see it moving. The quick disconnect there. And yeah, we
There we
have
go.
seen it before where they have taken a booster, lifted it, and then reattached it back on top of a booster, which we theorized was for alignment, but we can't say for certain in the past. So making sure you get everything lined up perfectly. That was, I think, one of the first, if not the first lift they did back with 7 and 24.
The cool angle with the flaps being like very, very symmetric.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the ship quick disconnect does disconnect quickly, but what other purpose does it serve?
Well,
Stabilization.
there's some stabilization, but also it's a great place to mount some cameras. No, it's just a good mounting point to be able to get some crews up there to be able to inspect that quick disconnect. But yeah, the main purpose of that is to fuel the Starship. They wouldn't want to fuel the Starship from the booster because then you'd need extra plumbing inside the booster, which is just extra mass. So it makes more sense to have a big claw that swings over and is a little bit of a work platform and a little bit of a quick disconnect.
All right, great explanation. While we wait for these last few meters, I do want to take a couple seconds and thank some super chats while we have just a quick moment here. TM, thank you very much for your super chat. Didn't leave a message, but still very much appreciate the dollary dues. John Ainsworth asking, how much did the water bags weigh when they tested the chopsticks before they lifted the booster? I believe that was 50 tons each, right? So how many was that total?
I would have
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe I believe each bag, though, if I recall, was 50 tons. So I would have to go back and count how many bags, but...
There was also smaller bags in there, like there was also different tests sometimes, so I would have to go back to look, but yeah.
Patrick saying 6 bags in total. We need to look at the exact sizes of it, but at least the mass simulant of the 150 tons or so we're talking for a typical dry mass Starship here.
That should be covered, yes.
Yeah. And IndyCar asking, why does SpaceX not just build a tower with chopstick size for a Falcon 9 to practice the catch procedures? And I think the main answer for that is because landing legs exist already for Falcon 9, and they've gotten pretty darn good at landing and catching those boosters, and then reusing them. Or not catching, landing them and reusing them.
Yeah, also the question is, does Falcon have the design, like, steering authority to even do that? Because we see some left and right wiggling sometimes where they land on the drone ships. So question is it even that able to steer that accurately? Also, would you get anything from practicing that in terms of like data with a totally different rocket and a totally different size and a different hardware? Like, at what point you're just designing a completely different system?
Exactly. And to answer the question here, we've got 2 big and 2 small bags, so 4 in total, which if the larger ones are about 50 tons each and the smaller ones say would be about 25, then that would make sense. I just love that view there on the screen right now where you can see it is almost stacked. There's just that small gap between the booster and the ship now with the QD arm getting into place, which Adrian, we talked about there are some cameras on there. Is it possible that they may also be using that to kind of just double check alignment of things with the ship and the booster?
I would be shocked if not. I think there will be certain holes in this where they are like, okay, let's watch this for a moment and just be sure we are fine before touching this. And right now, for example, you want to have every camera angle on this and make sure you're aligning this properly. Because if you align this properly, this is soon to be done, and you have a perfectly fine stacked Starship.
So measure twice, cut once. So in this case, measure twice, lower the chopsticks once.
Yeah, measure twice, stack once.
There, I like that better. There you go. Someone did pointing out William Warren supporting with the super chat saying, the lift would go faster if they lit a Raptor or 2.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if Raptor-assisted lifting is a good idea. I think there might be some other implications of that.
Yeah, what's wrong with a little roasty toasty stuff? That's all.
I mean, would just burn a booster a bit, right?
Just a little, that's all. Soot hasn't been a problem for Falcon 9. Why would it be an issue here, right?
Yeah, true. I don't see an issue. Let's do it.
There you go. Thank you for the support there. While we're waiting here, Markin is also with a good question here about the tiles. What is your opinion? If the ship were to lose one single tile on launch, would the whole ship be destroyed on re-entry? And if you don't mind, I'm going to go with my guess first here.
Yes.
As the resident shuttle fan, since Chris B is not talking in here with us at the moment, or Chris G. When it came to shuttle, a lot of it all depended on where it was. And when you think about the size of the tiles, I think depending on where it is, losing one is not going to be mission critical. That's also why there's multiple tiles. They're kind of smaller in size, so that multiple tiles can cover an area. So if one is damaged, well, then worst comes to worst, you have other tiles in the area that can hopefully kind of even things out a bit. So in my opinion, one tile? No. Multiple tiles? It really depends on what's underneath the tiles in that portion of the vehicle, and if it were to burn through, what kind of damage would it cause? I don't know if you have any thoughts from your end, Adrian.
No, I think I don't have anything to add for value. I completely agree.
All right, and again, this did happen on shuttle. There were missions where tiles fell off. Even like we were talking about STS-1, the first one on Columbia, there was a lot of tile loss, especially around the OMS pods in the back near what we'll call, for our sake, the tail here. But the ship was still okay. That's one of the areas that involves less heating. Whereas there was a certain mission in particular, I believe it was STS-27, if I recall, that almost had a dangerous burn through that almost saw the loss of Atlantis because of where a tile was broken. So a lot of it depends on that too. Tom Dalton, I don't know who he could be talking about here, but are angry noises a perk of membership? Asking for a friend.
Well, if you do bad jokes in the members Discord, there's a very good chance you will get angry noises.
I wonder from who in particular. Someone who maybe was joking about spiders with us while he is currently out there at Starbase, and we're not talking about Nick. Jack.
There's also other, like, the members will also applaud you for your great jokes.
I will applaud you as well, which if you are a Capcom or above, that's where you get access to the Discord, and ping me and I will personally congratulate you on your joke. How about that?
Yeah, and like jokes aside, even I think our members Discord is an amazing place to hang out. It's super active. There's rocket talks everywhere. We have very cool channels to discuss your favorite rockets and your favorite topic about spaceflight. And I highly recommend checking it out if you're Capcom above. It's a really, really cool place to be.
And even if you don't go Capcom or above, even if you go at a lower level, you still get access to member-exclusive videos right here on YouTube, as well as other perks. So while we're at it, thank you to Bjorn for becoming a Red Team member as well. And a few other thank yous that we want to give here of support. Alessandro, thank you for your support. No message there, but we still very much appreciate it. And Space Pope saying, bless this ascension. So thank you, everyone, for your support.
So right now, it looks like there's no movement whatsoever here anymore. It's more waiting for the final move to going down.
Correct.
Also, there might be like still movement, but very, very slim.
There's a good chance a lot of this also is just double, triple checking the alignment on everything as well, making sure that the pins or the connection points are exactly lined up before you lower it. That lasts, again, we approximately meter or so.
Yeah, if you want the right atmosphere for this, just play No Time for Caution right now on your personal playlist.
There you go. That's the best song on planet Earth. I love this idea.
Yeah. So it's just it's like the perfect ambience for this. Also, it's made by the amazing Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm. And we do have a question here as well. Ricky Nixon asking, how many attach points are there between Booster and Starship? So once it does lower down, how many attachment points are we talking about?
I think
Four,
it's
right?
Three,
yeah, four, something like that.
My understanding is there's 3 connection points there.
Yeah, it's 3.
So there are 3 different slots where it will line itself up with, and then once it's lowered down, connect. And again, as we were discussing at one point earlier, not only is that also the attachment point, we'll say, it's basically where it goes into, because it's not really a physical connection so much as kind of keeping it in place with some hooks. It's also the mechanism that will separate it once we get further on into flight. Once you get to MECO, they will disconnect the hooks essentially from it, and the Starship will continue on its way upward, whereas the booster will work on its return. So everything, because as we're being pointed out by Patrick is mentioning here as well, along those lines, it is entirely a passive system. So it's not so much a connection as it is a passive attachment, we'll say. Some good clarification on that as well as we wait for the last little bit here.
Let's just take a minute and appreciate how cool this engineering is and how lucky we are to have this happen in our lifetimes. This is the holy grail of rocketry, right? A fully reusable rocket ship, first and second stage, and obviously hasn't flown yet in a full stack configuration. We're hoping to get towards that, but this is just amazing that we even get to exist in this timeline. That's cool.
Yeah, it's
I like that in this timeline.
Just thinking about what is going on right now in spaceflight, we are in a week where we just watch the biggest rocket, or the most powerful rocket of all time, being stacked on Monday, and then probably later in the week or next week, there's a Falcon Heavy flying, and several, I don't know, Falcon 9s landing over the next week.
Don't forget, we also have the Virgin Orbit launch happening, I believe, right about now. There's OneWeb, there's Starlink launches, all within this week, and Falcon Heavy, which rolled out, which you can see over on Space Coast Live.
We had 6 China launches. We will have 6-ish China launches over the next 2 weeks, including the 2 that they did this morning. So, yeah, it's busy time in spaceflight everywhere, except in Europe. We don't launch things.
Well, again,
you have spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Well, you do have Virgin Orbit Launcher 1 out there at the moment, which is, I guess it'll be over the Atlantic, but we'll call it over in Europe for the time being, which, for those of you wondering why we are not covering it, it's because we don't have any of our physical cameras there, and even so, it's going to be way up in the air, dropping it from underneath the 747, so it's not even as much to see as, say, a vertical rocket liftoff, or, better yet, the stacking of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7 here, where we have the fantastic views from our robot army and our team on the ground, including Nick and Jack.
So I can tell you now, my personal playing of No Time for Caution is right now reaching the point where he would dock in the movie. So, yeah, watch for this. It will happen any second now based on this.
Lower. That's how it works, right? Hopefully
yes.
I'm not stealing Jack's thunder with that.
I love how there's just a fog or a cloud just hanging around.
Wait a minute. The Vandenberg launch isn't happening yet. Why are we seeing fog?
That's a cool shot, though. This is the Starship in the clouds.
Yeah, actually, I just packed up all my camera gear because this fog layer is I'm shooting into the sun, and so now it's just all white. There's zero contrast from my angle, so yay! Glad North has a view.
As cool as this view is, and you've got the fog and everything, I think we have some really fantastic views as well of both the lift as well as a full stack of 7 and 24 available as metal prints right now on shop.nasaspaceflight.com. So if you really like these views and want to hang one up on your wall, don't forget we have those as well.
This is cool. I love this. I know it is not great for Nick right now, so I'm sorry, but it looks cool on our
I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying this view. This is really cool. But yeah, see that fog layer? It's just like a sandwich of fog. It's a fog sandwich. Ooh, that sounds delicious. I'm hungry.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that I haven't eaten yet.
Yeah, same. I'm like, oh yeah, stomach.
Although from that fog angle, someone in chat just mentioned, is it Schrodinger stacked? Is it connected or isn't it connected?
Oh,
it's both.
Wow. Yep, that's about the angle I was shooting at there a minute ago. It's like, you can't really see too much.
It's really hard to see actually if it's. I think it has not gone down, but it's hard to see. Can we turn on like a leaf blower to blow this thing away? If we can see.
Need to run to Home Depot and grab one.
Perfect. Grab 2.
Yeah. Where's the nearest Home Depot to Starbase? Everything is really close there, right? Sarcasm?
40 minutes away. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
I've done that a few times. Like, oh, we forgot the drill bit. Gotta drive all the way back in there and back.
Why does that sound like something you would say when you forgot it? Gosh, drill bit.
Yep, that's that. Well, the specific instance I'm thinking of, and if Das is listening and he's smiling, we were trying to drill through a 1/2-inch piece of plate steel, and we busted a bit, and so we had to go all the way back to Brownsville and all the way back out. It took like all afternoon to get one stinking like $8 bit. It was quite sad.
So it bit the dust.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Thank you. I do have to give a prop here to John in chat mentioned, you know why we're seeing the fog out there? Because Jack's there.
Oh,
I
no.
didn't think about that. You're
Hey,
right,
Vandenberg launches?
Jack. This is all Jack's fault. There was no fog until Jack showed up.
Vandenberg
I'm gonna
launches
have
out
a word
west
with
with
him.
Jack. Fog. Falcon Heavy, the one he's at on the East Coast at the end of last year, USSF 44. Fog. Stacking now. Fog. What's the common denominator? Thank you.
Yeah.
Jack.
So props to John for that one.
Checkmate.
Do you know where the HR department is at NSF? Because I feel like I need to either go talk to HR or form HR so I can go complain about Jack to HR.
Form HR so you can complain to yourself.
We're continuing to try and keep an eye to see if the gap has gotten smaller, if they are lowering, which it looks like it has from what we can see, of Ship 24 on top of Booster 7 here. And we're keeping an eye on that with our cameras as best as we can as stacking continues, which began just about 45, 50-ish minutes ago. Which Wolfram, by the way, says that Adrian summoned it earlier, so we've got.
Oh yeah, oh no, yeah. I said how good it is that the fog is now away for the lift.
Oh.
Oh yeah, okay. I accept that. I am the guilty one. Sorry.
Well, I think it's a bad combination of your jinxing and Jack's. Like, I don't want to say existence, but presence is the word I'm looking for.
Oh,
and we are keeping an eye on all the other stuff going on in spaceflight right now. We are aware of Launcher 1. We are aware of ABL's attempt, I believe, is also happening today. We are aware of the CRS-26 resupply mission that is set to undock shortly from the International Space Station. We are aware of the OneWeb launch that is scheduled for tonight. We are aware that Falcon Heavy has now rolled out to Launch Complex 39A. So,
wow.
Boring day in space.
Definitely. Super boring. We should all take a vacation. That is kind of cool. Like we were all like on Christmas break or, holiday break or whatever and enjoying some time with family and friends. And then like, boom, New Year starts and here we go. Full stack. Got testing. We got all this stuff. Falcon Heavy. Like it's just all here, all at the beginning of the year. This is so cool.
Well, I should say ABL's attempt to launch. They scrubbed earlier, but still.
Thanks,
still
Justin.
Just wanted to mention it and that ABL is still doing their attempts up in Kodiak, so much happening.
Yep.
And again, you can watch a large portion of it right here on the NASA Spaceflight YouTube channel. Obviously, we have our Starbase Live where you can see all of this 24/7 in addition to our dedicated streams for major events such as this stacking. We also have Space Coast Live 24/7 where you can see everything going on today with Falcon Heavy rolling out. And then we have our launch coverage later tonight as well for OneWeb, which is a return to launch site as well. And of course, you can also keep up to date on all of these missions through the articles that we post on NASASpaceflight.com and all the forums that are going on as well over at L2. So lots going on. Lots of places to keep up with it here through NASA Spaceflight.
It looks almost like in this shot like SpaceX is producing that fog. I know it's not the case, but it looks like because the venting is going straight into the fog layer.
Zuma, anybody?
Ooh.
Oh no, not Zuma.
We got Zuma fog. We got the ULA. I don't know if we'll get demonetized if we say the word for their alleged attempts at demolishing a SpaceX rocket, which did not happen. It's a joke, but oh man.
Yeah, ship 24 already above the clouds.
There we go. And again, we are keeping an eye to check to see if there is a full stack yet as we wait for it to fully be lowered, and then the hooks will attach to connect the two together. So again, the two of them, there is, just to clarify what we were discussing earlier, the 3 connection points, it will drop on top of it, and there is a sort of hook system that will kind of hold it into place once it is there. For separation, once it is in flight, once we reach MECO, or main engine cutoff on the booster, there will be, the hooks will basically unlatch, and then it will be a passive separation where just the maneuvering of the two ships will eventually lead to a hopefully clean separation. As of right now, it appears that there's still a really small gap between them there.
And you don't want to mess that up even a little bit, because you want to make sure everything all clicks together. You don't want to be off by a little bit.
Yeah, in spaceflight, every millimeter counts.
Yeah, you don't want to put like anything in the wrong place if you lift like 120 tons. It's quite punishing.
While we're waiting for this last little bit of drop, we can hit a few quick super chats here as well. Colton B saying, you mentioned stack a booster, back on a booster. LOL, love the live streams. Been watching since the SN models, which thank you for watching all that time. We appreciate it and appreciate your support on the channel as well. Entendre asking, so do you think Falcon Heavy will take more tonnage to orbit, or do you think Starship will surpass it by the end of the year? And I think that once Starship starts carrying payload, I think it'll blow Falcon Heavy out of the water for the most part, right?
Definitely.
We'll see.
Oh, why do you say we'll see?
I mean, the thing is, I think everybody expected also Falcon Heavy to hit like a crazy cadence once it flew. And yeah, I think it's just maybe me being reasonable, careful that there might be some time after the first flight where you're like, okay, let's what we learned, and like slowly hit cadence. I think there will be a ramp up. It will take some time, which is okay, because if it takes some time to ramp up the biggest rocket of all time, I would say that is quite expected.
Exactly. And keep in mind also, Falcon Heavy, until they retire Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy way down the road, still serves its purpose in that if you have something that, still needs larger lift behind it, but you don't need the full 33 Raptor 2 engines pushing it, you've got your intermediary there with Falcon Heavy, plus it's also currently rated for DoD missions, Department of Defense. And on the left there, you can see some of that fog clearing, getting a much better view, that we still have that slight gap between...
Yeah, it's going down, right?
Now it's closing this very second.
It's still there. There's still a gap.
Very small. It looks like it's the last couple centimeters, millimeters here.
I'm like straining my eyes in person, but I cannot see it through this fog.
I'm glad that we don't have the face cams on today like yesterday, so you don't see all of us craning our necks into terrible positions to look.
There's still a gap.
It does look like the road has now opened. A bunch of people are leaving. So, I mean, we know it wasn't actually closed or whatever, but the road is more open than it was.
That is a good sign.
I think on the right side it's also closing.
I
think. Is that? I think you can see still a gap there, right?
On the left, you can see a slight gap, it looks like still. It's hard to tell because the fog has lightened but not disappeared. So we're looking as best as we can with the current cameras that we have. Which, again, thank you, Patrick, for cycling through all of these views for us right now and making all of these views happen.
There's a SpaceX drone.
There we go. The drone is out, so hopefully that's giving an inspection of the connections at this point. So if you see something flying around a little bit there on the side, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's a SpaceX drone. Or a speck of dust, but likely drone.
Okay, it's hard to see. Like, it's hard to call if it's like still millimeters away, but I feel like we can call this touchdown-ish.
Close to it. So approximately about 1 hour or so after first motion is when it appears as if it is almost, if not fully, attached to Booster 7 there. I think we can call that.
Yeah, I think we can call that. Yeah, let's say Starship 24 and Booster 7 are stacked now for a third time.
All right, beautiful. That is the 5th stacking of a Starship. They're using the chopsticks if you include 4 and 20. So hopefully this will lead the way to orbital test flight very soon. A few more super chats we want to hit here. Hamster Space Nerd 3000 saying, love y'all streams. What would happen if the booster pulled an SN3 with the ship on top? I assume the ship would just collapse. Would they be able to catch it with the arms in time? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Yeah. Kind of dangerous too, so let's hope that doesn't happen, right?
Yes.
We've got a few new members here, so thank you to Matt for becoming a PadRat member. And thank you to Bjorn for upgrading to a Capcom member as well. And a reminder, Capcom and above, in addition to all the other perks, gets access to our NASA Spaceflight Discord, so make sure you pop on in and say hi over there as well. We have Stan Hart as well with the support. No message, but we very much appreciate that support as well. Thank you. Ron Smith with the contribution here for Jack to get some pocket bacon. Poor guy needs it after this stream. So
I have I have been keeping Jack very well supplied with bacon. I cooked him a pound of bacon the other day, and yesterday he told me that he had too much bacon, which is kind of shocking. And I was questioning him as a person and as a creator because, wow, too much bacon? Impossible.
Yeah, very true. There is no such thing. Joe with the extremely generous support here as well. Thank you, Joe, saying we were talking about the X programs from the 50s up to the shuttle today, and this just wraps up our science passion. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Joe, again, for the very generous support there. And yeah, going back to the old days of Chuck Yeager and the X1, X15s, all that fun shuttle. And now you've got the next generation here with Starship, which is fantastic. Plutonium 239, are you guys looking forward to Comet 2022 E3 headed closest to Earth? I know come the end of January, beginning February, I will be bringing out the binocs and the cameras, seeing if we can see it, and hoping beyond all hope that we get that it gets bright enough that we can see it with binoculars and cameras. I don't know about you guys.
I learned about this just now.
Well, there's a comet that's coming that'll be very close, and we haven't seen it. I believe the last time it came by, Neanderthals were the ones that were roaming around on the Earth, so it's been a hot minute, and I believe it will start coming around now with the peak getting close to end of January, beginning of February, with the potential of a brightness of up to, I believe, 6 magnitude. So lots of good potential there. And Martian, thank you as well with the support here. For anyone needs to hear this, hiya, we have good news. And I would say that is very good news that we now have a stacked booster and ship here. So at this point, it looks like we're seeing a few small adjustments being made as they work to fine-tune the attachment here and get ready to deploy the hooks, if I'm understanding that correctly. Is that what you're... I believe that's what Alex is saying in the back chat. I don't know if any of you can see that, again, with all the fog and everything.
Yeah, I can't see anything in person. It's pretty bad.
And it's so cool to see a full stack again.
Oh, this view never gets old, ever. Oh, I mean, I love the view, and again, I know I keep pitching it and keep mentioning it, but not only does it support the stream by going to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, but the pictures that we have there of the fully stacked Starship are some of just my favorite pictures in general anyway. So I know I keep mentioning it, I know I keep pitching it, but the pictures are just that darn cool that I just keep looking at them whenever we go to the shop and I'm doing it for a video or something, or I'm just looking for myself. I just see those and go, that is such a cool shot. And a lot of those are from people like Nick, who's out there right now, so we appreciate all those shots that you get us there, Nick.
Absolutely, and Jack has some too, and Mary has some, and lots of the people who have put the blood, sweat, and tears in out here, and I mean blood, sweat, and tears, because you're crying when you're hiking so far up in the sweaty hills, and you're bleeding because all the mosquito bites. So, yep.
Speaking of, there's one of those fantastic shots on the shop there, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, with the full stack at night with the gorgeous lighting on it. That's what I mean. It's shots like that. And we've got all different kinds of metal prints. So for Starship, we also have SLS, all these different ones, a lot of the great ones from down in Starbase there too. So shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Again, not only does it look great on your walls, I think, because I love these pictures, but it does help support us and allows us to do what we do here and hopefully bring it to you. Yeah, at this point, just waiting for the final drop down here, make sure everything is hooked into place and kind of set. And again, excited to see all the views from the different camera angles that we have that will be put together soon in a video that will be uploaded to the channel in the next day or so.
Oh yeah, we'll get right on that.
Oh yeah. So this was a question that I saw earlier from Westy the Third while we're waiting up here, and he said, question for Nick. I've always wanted to ask, what, in your personal opinion, is the coolest thing you have seen and learned since your time at Boca?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, there's so many cool things. I think there's a lot of personal growth and like personal stuff, but at least Starship related, definitely full stacks. There's been some beautiful sunrises and some beautiful sunsets and just some really gorgeous memories. And that's definitely going to sit with me for a long time. But probably bigger than that, but not necessarily Starship related, but it's been the friendships that I've had down here. All the photographers down here are so cool, and we just have this like little family of space nerds who don't fit in really anywhere else, just like we do in the NSF Discord. But it's just a bunch of space nerds hanging out that are down here for the right reasons and just enjoying life. And that's probably the biggest coolest thing that I've seen down here is just all the friendships that I've made. But definitely, basically every sunrise and sunset with a full stack is like Starship stuff. That OLM vent with the rainbow was pretty cool. Or not vent, what was that called? FireX or whatever, fire suppression system. That was pretty cool. But yeah.
Wow, really well said. That I got goosebumps just listening to that. So thank you for sharing it. That's cool, and we love seeing it. And also want to just thank Wheelie for the support as well. So thank you. And I guess the response already is, don't mention it. So I think that is the perfect note to wrap things up here. I do want to give a big shout out to you, Nick, out there.
And Jack too. Jack too. He's sweating out here right next to me.
Yes. Thank you to everyone out there. But in particular, Nick, thank you for being there for right now, since we have you on comms.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us, and good stack.
Good stack indeed. Also, thank you to Jack, as mentioned, who is out there in the field getting video, and we'll be excited to see that footage very, very soon. Adrian, thank you as well for being on comms with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was I love these. I love the first stack, and I remember when we were like basically every team member that was available was just hopping on the stream because we're like so excited. And this was just like that the first time. I love to see Starship being stacked, and let's hope it clears the path for orbital launch very soon. And also, thank you, Sawyer, for being our host today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't get old. And of course, a big shout out to Patrick as well, who right now is the one who's been pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and taking care of the robot army for this feed here. So thank you, Patrick, for all of your great camera work too. And yes, I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for this stacking stream, and as you mentioned, this never gets old. There's something about seeing this happen, seeing the full stack, that every time just gives you goosebumps. And that's why we all want to jump on these streams and talk about it, because it is just that cool. And I'll be honest, I think it's so cool that the way to continue this is to send everyone over to Starbase Live, which is our 24/7 feed, where you can see everything happening at Starbase Live. And that way you can keep track of, just take a look at the beautiful shots of a fully stacked Ship 24 and Booster 7. So I think on that note, I will say, later, nerds.